Today's show is brought to you by Lovable. Here we go.
And a warm felt welcome here to Take Studio. My name is Sverre Krogh Sundbø, and David Howell, he's decided to take a vacation, so we brought in the best of the best here. We're going to see that, but first, we have a lot to look forward to today.
It looks like Farouche is almost getting it done on the board. Should still be a draw. He's losing now suddenly.
He's throwing a thorn into the white side, holding on here for dear life. The nerves are kicking in.
He's playing with Ghost, afraid to commit.
Did he lose on time?
The clock is his worst enemy right now.
Oh, look at this. He's trapped his own king in the corner. The black rook is hit as well.
Whoa, is this a blunder?
Checkmate is coming.
And I promise you guys the best of the best, so we brought in GM Robert Hess. Welcome to the Take Studio again.
Thank you so much for welcoming me back. I guess I didn't do too poorly, so I was welcome back a second time. But it's always great to cover Title Tuesday here.
It's not about doing well or poorly, it's about having a good time. And I think we're actually sharing that now to the audience, the fact that we bring in the people who create the most entertainment for those who are sitting at home watching. It's going to be a bit of a different day, because as you know, there is a huge tournament being played right now in Cyprus. It's a candidates tournament, so there's 8 players who are quite certain is not going to play Title Tuesday today.
Oh, you never know. In this day and age, they complete their game in the candidates, they sit down, they're playing Faustino Oro and Levon Aronian in Title Tuesday, but in all seriousness, that opens the field up for quite a number of young talent and for veterans who are trying to get that first Title Tuesday victory.
It's going to be interesting. It's 15 minutes until we start play here. I figure we can take the time now to just go a little bit through the candidates so far, because it's quite interesting. If you asked a lot of people 3-4 months ago, people were kind of thinking, okay, we're likely looking at a Hikaru Nakamura type battle here. There's other players who's really coming up strong these days, aren't there?
I think it's a common misconception, right? People see the highest rated player and assume that player is going to win this event and then go compete for the World Championship. But there have been many candidates in the past. The number 1 seed doesn't always win. Otherwise, Levon Aronian would have played for a World Championship. And Levon, who was number 2 in the world for a long time, unfortunately couldn't get through the candidate stage. And it's not just about him, many others. So this is just such a common misconception. And the field is quite open.
Who's your outsider to go and make a splash in the candidates?
Well, we're only 2 rounds in. We have the 3rd round going on right now. I mean, you see the youngsters. You see Pragnanda, who I guess has some experience in the candidates now. It's a second go-round. And Javakir Sindarov, his first candidates. But boy, those two have such a fun battle going on in this 3rd game.
Yeah, because they're both at 1.5 points out of 2. And right now, they're really battling it out. Can you say, let's just do a little bit of a head start, talk about the candidates. What do you think about that position right now between those guys?
Ooh, the candidates, first of all, is so fun because you have 8 players who play each other with each color. So if you lose, as Hikaru did in the first game against Fabiano with black, you'll get white against him the second go around. But in the case of Javakir and Pragnanda, I mean, we have the board open here. It is pure pandemonium, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, there are pieces flying across the board. I have to do a quick count. White has an extra knight, but black has a few pawns and a way safer king. So it's hard for me to evaluate this position. I can see, I look with an engine, see what the bar says, but when the bar is hovering near the middle, that means the players are having a free-for-all.
Yeah, and also when they're playing on 99 accuracy, it means that they're obviously in prep, it seems, but it's just looking crazy right now.
Well, you'll be surprised. Sometimes they like to pretend it's preparation. They stumble into something that's exciting, but these players are so strong, they can gather themselves in a hurry. Like they may be looking at a position and saying, oh goodness, my king's wide open, but I have that material, and they kind of convince themselves sometimes they can handle it. But at the end of the day, that often proves true.
It's going to be fun. We're going to keep you up to date if something special happens in those games as well. But right now, let's take a look at the total standings for the Champions Chess Tour. Champions Chess Tour total standings, where we have also the points added in from the different events that count towards the Champions Chess Tour. So we exclude Magnus Carlsen, Denis Lazovic, and Alireza Firouzja, because they're already qualified for the EWC. But we have Hikaru, who's picked up the extra points from the Speed Chess Championship. Same with Caruana, Niemann, and Wesley So. So that leaves us with this following standing.
Really interesting to see this. I mean, usually we see a car in first, but not with this little asterisk that Magnus, Dennis, and Alireza, they're already through. But you see a whole host of true competitors there. Like I circle number 5 there. The man from Poland, Jan Krzysztof Duda, he's an absolute beast. We sometimes forget about him because he goes inactive for a point in time. But look at how strong he is in 5th place. He's doing really well this season.
And we see Wesley. He needs to pick up some more points on other things than the Speed Chess Championship because I think the global Chess.com Championship is going to be important for him.
And he knows how to win that event. I have to say that Wesley, he loves rapid time controls. He also did just win the American Cup. That's over the board, but it had a mix of classical time controls, the longest time control, as well as rapid, which is a quicker pace. So Wesley, he needs to play a bit more. He needs to score some serious points, but I think he's got his eyes set on the Global Championship.
We don't see him that often, though, in the Title Tuesday play. Let's take a look at the format that we're going to be playing here. Once again, for game week 5 of this third split. We play the 5+0, no increment time at all, 11 rounds, and then we see the points that is awarded to this Champions Chess Tour system, where you get 10 for first, 7 for second, and so on until 1 point from 8th until 10th. How do you like that time control? Do you enjoy it, Robert?
You know, there were some complaints early on, but I think the players actually do quite enjoy it. Flagging somebody when you're both down your final seconds, and you may be down a queen, but you still win because you're the one with time left on your clock. It can be exciting. I know there are purists out there who are saying, oh, but the players, they should play out every endgame. There's actually quite little difference often between 3 minutes with 1 second bonus time per move and 5 minutes to start with. Like, you can get a better start to the game with more time on the clock, and then, well, you have to keep pace because otherwise you're going to lose not on the board, but on time.
Is there such a thing as a dirty flag anymore?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a good question, though, because it happens so regularly that maybe I need to change my thoughts about this.
I think I remember the one Title Tuesday final match between Grishik and Magnus, where Magnus flagged Alexander quite dirtily. And I think that Grishik, if you ask him, would definitely say that yes, there is such a thing as a dirty flag. But we shall see. Let's take a look at the standings now with this spring split 3 standings. And we have the young Indian with 17 points there, Nihal, who's ahead of a trio with 10 points. We know that Sindarov is probably not going to do quite well on this standing bound jump today because he seemed to be playing a pretty good game by himself right now.
Yeah, he's a bit busy. I mean, Nihal has been busy racking up the points. And the players in second and third, Sidipov and Sina Movahed, these 2 players are really strong. They may go under the radar because their classical ratings aren't in the 2700s. But Sina in particular, he's very young. He's in 3rd place from Iran. He's somebody who has won Title Tuesday and can win a number more.
It's really interesting with Movahed. It's go back a year. It's really hard to pin him to any kind of, well, at least for us chess fans who don't go close up. But the pace that he's moving right now is so extreme. How long do you think until he really becomes someone to be reckoned with within the candidates in those kind of tournaments?
You know, I struggle to prognosticate because somebody like him, and he's got so much talent. And, you know, you see the flag next to his name, a youngster from Iran who also was able to skyrocket, ascend to the top, was Alireza Firouzja. And Iran is very strong in the chess world, Parham Maksudlu and others. So there's the infrastructure in terms of the chess community there, but it remains to be seen because it's not just about how talented you are, it's also about the talent of people you're facing. And if they're getting increasingly strong as well, it makes it harder to move on up. And so I think that he, of course, can reach into those 2700s, but it's hard to predict for each individual player.
I will point out one thing, though. The person on top here right now, Nihal Sarin, I mean, if there was one person who I found to be the most excited about being in the EWC last year, it was this Indian. He was living the whole idea of merging the esports with the chess. And I think that he is so motivated to qualify once again to that tournament. And that bonus, it's really becoming something to strive for, isn't it?
And I would say that Nihal's justified his rhythm. And what I mean by that is he actually was part of this young contingent of successful stars from India, right? That generation that Vishianen inspired. But then people are like, he's playing bullet chess. What's he doing? Why is he playing so much blitz? He's winning Title Tuesday. Okay, but then what? Speed Chess Championship? Oh, a top 4 finish when he's a teenager? What's that got to do with anything? But the truth is that these successes online, they build confidence, but they also build chess strength. So for a player like Nihal, who's now at his peak rating over the board in the 2720s, just look at the live rating list, right? He is up there now, so I think he has really justified the way he has played in the past.
And also someone else who we only saw playing online for a long time, Denis Lazovic, who's now really showing what he can also do on the board.
Yeah, this is another player where people are like, who is he? What's he doing? And then if you look at the World Rapid and Blitz standings, every single year, he's gaining tons of rating. He's near the top, beating these top players. And the key to Denis, he rarely loses. Has such a solid style.
Looking at the players who signed up so far, I mean, that's why I thought of Lazovic, because we see him kind of standing out a little bit here. It's so far, the biggest names have yet to arrive here.
Well, it's funny because there's some names that I'm very happy to see. And I see Georg Meyer there with the Uruguayan flag. He is a long-time top competitor who has a full-time job. So, they talk about who's the best amateur chess player. I actually am not sure if he switched back into chess, but for a while, I believe he worked in finance, and he was playing in these top German events, playing against Magnus, playing against all these top guys, and then going back to his day job. So it's good to see Georg still at it, really, really strong online.
We have still 3 minutes and 50 seconds. We do find that a lot of the top players try to cut it as short as possible with the sign-ups. Do you ever play Title Tuesday anymore?
I haven't played a single game of chess in a really long time. People are shocked, but guess how long it's been.
No, I think I could understand that, but how I would say, I mean, if it was up to me, I would say a really long time, maybe 2 days, but I'm guessing that is not the answer right now.
The end of 2024.
Just a question, or rather a theory on that, because I used to play professional poker in the past, and I found that when I stopped playing competitively, I hate to be a poorer version of myself in a sense. Is that somehow the reasoning for it, or?
I think that is a really interesting take, and I think that's true for a lot of people. I think for me, it's just like, especially as I've done so much chess, not playing, but commentating and coaching and all that, that's like, I don't have that itch necessarily. So, if I've got some free time, I'd rather just read a book or go hang out with my wife or, do all sorts of other things. But I think I've been thinking about getting back into it. Let's put it that way.
And I do think it's hard to overestimate how much time it really does take to play chess at a GM level or to maintain chess at a GM level.
And I think that's taken for granted often. It's like we assume that because somebody once was a certain strength, they will remain that way. And that's what's so impressive about names like Georg Meyer. Like, yes, maybe not at his peak level. And there are plenty of players that I'm seeing here that are part of an older generation that people may not know in this new wave of esports and all that. But some really strong names on this list that we can circle. And also some 2700s currently.
Maybe Hans Niemann has arrived in Germany for the freestyle Grenke tournament. We see Duda, you were just talking about, Jan Krzysztof. We have Nepo here now, Andreikin. There's a lot of strong names suddenly showing up.
Yeah, we've got Jaswin, Parham. I mean, look at this. The list goes on and on. And I mean, I see Arvin hanging in there right above Faustino, the youngster who's still not quite a GM, but he's kind of like, everyone just knows he's more than GM strength at this point. When you're that young and that talented, it's like, okay, you didn't break the record, but you'll break many other records going forward.
Even a Scandinavian rival here with Nils Grandelius who showed up. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking at this list thinking that we're going to have a pretty good day of chess here.
Oh, any day with these players. I mean, you just don't have to close your eyes and throw a dart, and you'll find a great chess player here. And they keep coming. Like, I'm seeing new names added to the list, and some being pushed off. But Alexander Indrich, a great player there. Benjamin Bach, he's really, really strong, especially in the opening stage of the game. Well prepared, can beat anybody in any given round. So the list goes on and on, truly.
One player that we've not seen yet is Magnus Carlsen. Now, I'm not sure if Magnus is going to play today, so it's going to be interesting to see. Usually when he does show up, it's within this last minute. So
yeah, he is. Sometimes it's even afterwards, right? If it's an over-the-board game, he's renowned for showing up drenched in sweat, maybe has a bicycle by his side. I think he should start adding more props when he shows up late.
I know, I'm excited by it, but we'll wait and see. Right now, we're going to focus on the players who are here. We're going to get ready for play. It's almost Title Tuesdays.
Oh, he's walked into some kind of discovered check. Oh, no. It's a mouse slip. was a pre-move, I think.
Where was this knight
The
going?
token, he put his knight here. He didn't. We see the reaction.
Look at
Oh, Egyptian. Oh, blunder by Hans Niemann. He has given up his queen. I was saying this is good, but
What?
What?
Why not book C1?
Takes the win.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
I love that exit from Hans Niemann here. But we got 5 seconds. I can't see a Magnus, so I think we're going to be without him. But that means we have a whole lot of strong other players who's ready to go. It's interesting. Who are you hoping to see a lot of today?
Oof, I mean, you just mentioned Hans Niemann. He's always brings entertainment value. There's also Dmitry Andreikin I saw in the mix. That's somebody who goes way, way back. He played in the candidates in the past as well. But we have Hans on the screen here, at least an image of him. And I like his opponent's avatar. Right? That just shows how strong and confident Golubovich is. Sorry, I mispronounced the name. And we're off, I guess. I mean, it's funny to see this shield, right, with the logo, but it's Gryffindor all the way from the white side. And in this game, we see his trades on the queen side over there. The white queen is active. And now the players, they're just jockeying for position. This latest move from Hans with the black pieces, maybe the engine doesn't prefer it, but it actually stops some important plans from the white side. So white is expanding over here on the queen side. You see those 3 pawns in a row, and black is just trying to play solid and just watch out, because there is could be a checkmate threat if you're not careful. And that long diagonal bishop and queen lined up, you have to be alert. And we see black stop that.
Yeah, now we just got the picture, because I was going to ask you prior to that. If you see a Gryffindor logo, what would you guess the age?
Oh, I was going to guess young, so I didn't know, but now we see it. And I was going to say, what Gryffindor really wants is 1 point in this game, right? It's all you get in a game of chess. But beating Hans Niemann, that is a really tough task for anybody on the plane, especially when you're outrated here by nearly 600 points.
This young FM is 13 years old. He's got a standard FIDE rating of 23-26.
Kids these days.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just so strong. And in an individual matchup like this, any player can take down a top competitor. And Hans is, he's playing this in the center right now. He's trying to open things up. His latest move of pawn forward was trying to get at this white queen and bishop. That they would be strong together, but they're very clearly opposed. I mean, this is just not going anywhere, because the black bishop is competing for that same diagonal, and bishops usually win stare downs, with enemy queens. So Hans is up on time. His position is starting to improve. He's getting more active. It's looking pretty good for him at the start.
And also, we do find that one of the major problems for these young kids playing against big names is their time usage.
Yeah, you start getting nervous. You don't want to make the wrong move. But then if you're in an even position, but down a minute on the clock, you're going to get flagged.
3.5 minutes left for this 13-year-old from Croatia, whereas Niemann has only spent 34 seconds to begin.
And Hans is showing some good restraint, I would say. It's been very tempting for him from the black side to push one of these 2 pawns, start going after the white king. The white king is quite lonely here. And for everybody at home watching, I mean, you typically need defenders, and you'd prefer to have a bishop where the king is sitting from the white side, because a bishop here would be an amazing piece staring down the diagonal. But unfortunately, a king doesn't do that, and it can become a quick victim to an attack. And you see the latest move from the white side is disapproved of by the engine. Very clear plan now for Hans Niemann. He is going straight for that white king, which is quite open.
And also we see the pace at which Hans plays here. I mean, he's clearly comfortable.
And he should be. He's at home, or maybe he's in Germany. I'm not sure where he is, but that does look like a nice apartment behind him, or hotel room. And we see Gryffindor back on screen, but unfortunately for the youngster with the white pieces, his king is now in grave danger. Don't be rushing this. That's one piece of advice. Many of us would play queen up to h3, trying to deliver a checkmate on the square. The problem is, if you had rushed that move, the white queen would slide back, stopping the checkmate and trying to offer a trade of queens. When you're going for the attack, you prefer to have more pieces on the board. So a queen trade is not what Hans wants, and not just because he's the high-rated player, because that's what the position calls for. But it's objectively winning here for Hans right now. Oof. Everything's falling apart. This is actually just great technique from Hans. Instead of going for the immediate checkmate, many of us, including myself, would have wanted to lift our rook up the board and go for the attack. Hans is saying there's a loose pawn over here. That's a double attack. And if the white queen went away, it went to the right square to defend checkmate. But if the queen defended this pawn, then the black queen would have entered and gone for a mate. So Hans, full board awareness, full clock awareness. He's up so much time, and he doesn't care about measly pawns. I mean, this is beautiful play from the black side. There's going to be a sacrifice at some point for checkmate.
I just got to say, Robert, I so agree with the comment on here from Raulis Mama saying, happy to have Hess. It's brilliant to have you present here in the studio, and it's really good to have you with us for a Title Tuesday round.
I really appreciate that. You know, Title Tuesday is always going to be a throwback for me because I used to cover it way back when. I used to compete in it, and so I do love the quickest of time controls. Of course, I love the Candidates Tournament and all that's happening there. I'm not somebody who likes to choose in that way. It's not that I'm a commitment phobe. I'm a married man. But I think that why choose between one or the other when you can be spoiled for choice like we are in this day and age? And I think, speaking of spoiled for choice, but this is just, which piece of sacrifice on G3, I wasn't sure. But Hans is just throwing all his pieces. Oh, this is just over. The king goes to the side. That's a knight fork on G3. The king and queen are hit. If the king steps up, it's walking right into a deadly attack. White just resigned.
But it's so beautiful. Just the attack, it was so controlled, it was so beautiful.
Measured. And that's something that Hans is really adding to his game, and it's a credit to him. And I think that we assume that all players of the same rating, they can do all the same things. That's not necessarily true, and that's not meant as a slight to any of the top players, but everyone has their preferences. It's not just about strengths and weaknesses, it's about what do you actually prefer. Chess is an individual game because of how you play it, but it's also individualistic in terms of your style. And this game, Bortnik has the black pieces here. He can take a rook in the corner. He is yet to move because he's also was considering dropping back, taking a pawn with a fork. But right now the material imbalance is such that white has a bishop for a rook and one pawn. Sorry, bishop and pawn for a rook, excuse me. But this knight on a1, knights in the rim are dim. Knights all the way in enemy territory in the corner can just be lost. But that's why black's move was so important. He's trying to extricate that knight by trading the light square bishops.
We know Bortnik is good in time scrambles here, but Sukac is putting him in trouble here, isn't he?
Yeah, it's one of these moments where I wonder if Bortnik put himself in trouble. Did he needlessly spend time? Was he away from the board? Did he have internet issues? I'm not really sure. But ooh, that was a big mistake. Suddenly, this knight can run away, and he runs away with check. That was the key that I think white missed. And now this pawn drops, and now black truly is up in exchange. Look at Bortnik. Maybe that's where he was. Domino.
Sukac, for the record, though, is the 28-year-old Marco Sukac. He's a 22.65 standard FIDE player.
And Title Tuesday, it allows players like Marco to have the opportunity to beat these top-rated players. And this is not just us saying that. We've seen it in these Title Tuesdays. The name earlier on the stream, Wietek, I remember that name because when I was here earlier from I think the first split back in the fall and autumn, he had a huge upset victory. So, this happens in Title Tuesday.
Which is also what is beautiful about this format, having all title players really being able to compete on the same level.
Oh, for sure. And well, I mean, the only thing that's not level in this game is the time and the fact that black is up a little bit of material. But I would be worried if Bortnik weren't Bortnik. And what I mean by that is he's a speed demon. He's a world-class bullet player. You can ask Magnus about that. And he knows full well. They have so much respect for Bortnik in the chess world. And right now, he's trying to play as quickly as possible. And he is causing his opponent to ponder each and every move. And that's not good when your real key to winning from the white side is on the clock.
It doesn't seem extremely happy here, Sukac.
No, but speaking of upsets, it looks like Nepo was defeated by FIDE master Wouter Turlo. So huge upset. It's what we're talking about.
Wow.
And Bortnik doesn't want to make this a daily double. Like he's sitting looking at this position. He wants to go for the attack, but he also has to continue keeping an eye on his clock. 38 seconds for Alexander Bortnik is an eternity. For a player like myself, I get a little bit nervous. I start wondering, do I have enough time to convert my advantage? For Bortnik, he's like, 35. I usually start the game with 10 seconds. That hyper bullet is my calling card, and this is going to end the game. Rook h3 check. It's there right now. Wins a queen.
Speaking of these young kids, I mean, here we just saw this Turlo who defeats Nepo. He's, a young kid on his way up. It's hard to evaluate their strength as well because it's so rising with every week, every month they're playing.
No, you can't just say this player is 22, 2300. You have to look at the trajectory and the opportunity. And Bortnik, he took this opportunity to win all of white's pieces. But we see the games that have been going on, huge upset towards the top, and Nepo's lost. But otherwise, It seems like
Look at the fourth game here.
Oh, let's bring it up. I think we can indeed. It looks like Denis Lazovic, he might be having some swings in his game against Maroon Tomb. So a candidate master is trying to deliver a knockout blow. Tomb is an amazing last name for a chess player, or a first name. I mean, just amazing name. And what's going on here? Wow, it looks like both sides have passed pawns. I like to say that in the endgame, it's not just about the pawn quantity. Black is up a pawn, so you think black should be winning, but white's pawns are very quick here. And black to move hasn't decided which direction to move the king in. King up to g4 does attack a pawn, but it gets in the way of any attempt to then run after that pawn. So we see the clock. Time is being spent. What's going on here?
He needs to move. He's going to get flagged if he doesn't start moving.
Yeah, Denis Lazovic also is a speed demon. He's now winning over the board, or I should say much better, when the white side. And the reason why is this pawn will collapse, and then the next pawn is in trouble. So both sides are actually playing this, very tough endgame as best they can, but now white is up a rook. That rook is going to stop the pawns, and black is not in time to stop that runaway pawn that's become a queen. So you can see the upset on Maroon Tomb's face.
But this was a brilliant game as well. This is really entertaining.
Yeah, we are definitely entertained here, but unfortunately for Maroon Tomb, entertainment doesn't score points.
And look at the top. Brilliant! With the alien, in with the win.
And that's funny because as soon as I said entertainment doesn't score points, we see Witty Alien score an upset victory over Super Grandmaster Arvind Chittambaram. That's a huge victory for him. I'm sure that will be made in a YouTube video.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's streaming right now with what is going on. So, and I'm sure he played some kind of crazy opening where he got as many double exclamation marks as he possibly could.
You know, it's funny. I don't really use social media much, but I have seen his content, and the amount of ripped shirts I've seen is just nuts, right?
He's been a streamer here as well. So he came to Oslo to the Take studio to do live streaming, and it was truly sitting in this studio. We heard Witty more than we actually heard the actual broadcast. So it was it was quite entertaining for us as well.
Well, you answered the question that you are indeed entertained. And look at that avatar, right? That's just great stuff. And we'll have to see, will Witty be able to handle his opponent? Because that looks like a determined player in Simon Pozarevsky. I mean, that's not going to be an easy matchup, and we can actually watch these games as they unfold. But people sometimes forget that, Witty Alien is witty and is good at chess. It's not just like an act. He is a very strong player and can beat, and has proven it in the first round of Title Tuesday, does beat top players when he is at his best. And right now, he has the black pieces in this game. So far, a very solid start. I wonder if that influences a player like him, where you get this victory, and now you sort of like are into the tournament, and you just want to keep it going, and you don't want to play crazy stuff, but you want to play solidly.
Absolutely, but one thing I can guarantee is if Witty Alien gets players into his openings, that's when you know you're in trouble. So, I mean, he does have these crazy ideas, but you need to be a very, very strong player to be able to counter them, though.
Absolutely, and his openings are quite offbeat, and some would have called them in the past dubious. You would see that in books, like question mark, exclamation point. But he knows them really well. So even if the engine suggests that his opponent is better, the players are at the board doing the work themselves. So for Witty Alien, I'm sure he's jumping around, ripping a shirt, but what I mean is he's a serious chess player as well. So he has this balance of being an entertainer, of being a content creator, but he's a very strong player. And from the black side of this game, against 2,900 plus FM, he has done everything you could ask for. He's developed his pieces. It's like I think almost fully symmetrical position, except for the placement of this white rook here, and now the queen for black. But both sides are just like developing, putting their piece on natural squares, and they're not flinching. Like, who's going to take which piece first?
Magnus Carlsen has joined for round 2.
Oh, wow. So he's late.
He's late.
Better late than never.
In.
Okay, Magnus Carlsen.
Means that, well, we know that he is the kind of guy who can go 10 for 10, and actually, that would be insane. Because you would kill your tiebreaker record as well by not playing the first one. Yeah,
actually, not playing the first round could, sometimes almost eliminate you from getting the victory if other players are also in good form. But I think that Magnus, he will have a chance, because when you win your games, you'll start playing those people who are undefeated. So, I mean, Magnus, it's always great to see him playing. And this game, I feel, the question that Witty asked, are you entertained? I'm going to be honest, where are the sacrifices? Where is the, commotion?
Is this what I'm allowed to say? He's playing black.
No. Well, actually, I don't watch enough of his. I know he's got this line against the Caro-Kann from the white side. Does he have a similar thing from the black openings? I guess maybe we have to ask people who are watching, who are also followers of his channel. Oh, this is like high level chess, but it's just, little incremental progress here and there. White has more space, everybody, on a serious, trying coaching note, that White has more space. And it's official, Witty is shirtless on his stream.
For those of you who wants to watch Witty as well, he's ripped off his shirt already. And the whole chat is just filled with exclamation marks there. So hopefully he turns on his camera here as well so we can see that soon, because that would be highly entertaining.
Yeah, he is playing some good chess. So the jokes aside, from the black pieces, you asked the question. It's a very fair one. I mean, in the game of chess, White often determines the trajectory of the game. You have the first move. You can steer the ship a little bit. And right now, Simon Pozharevsky playing really well from the White side. He's gained a lot of space here. Black is just shuffling about. You see the queen infiltrate. It can't necessarily win anything. And what he says, anything you can do, I can do. Well, he would like to say better, but the engine is still favoring White. But that's an interesting move from him. I think White can continue advancing pieces as he does, but Black is shuffling back and forth. And time will play a part in this game, because breaking down Black's forces from Witty Alien, I mean, you have to be from another planet to do that, because against a player strong as him, without a clear target in the position, everything is defended. Literally every piece defended at the moment from the Black side. Good luck trying to make inroads here. I think that he's acquitting himself quite nicely from the Black side, and this would be another great result for him if he can hold this game.
3 minutes left on the clock, 2:41 here for Pozharevsky. It does seem to be interesting.
It is a level battle between two very sturdy competitors. I think we could say that much.
Speaking of what is not a level battle, I figure I just have to add the fact that Caruana has been pushing in the candidates against YE today. It does seem like he's gaining at least a computer advantage right now in that game, in what seems to be an otherwise quite equal game in the candidates.
I was looking at that game earlier, and Fabiano did something that I've often advised, but I'm often too nervous to do myself. If an opponent is going to play a kind of gambit or give a couple pawns for compensation, take it and make them prove it, especially on such a big stage like the candidates, where every single win is of vital importance. I think that Fabiano, he took a couple pawns, he's running with it. Still a lot to prove in his game, but you have to give a shout out where it's due. I mean, Fabiano, he's looked good. I know Hikaru said Fabiano's endgame technique wasn't perfect in game 1, but it was good enough. And in game 2, he held with Black, and here in game 3 with the white pieces against the Super Grandmaster from China Wei Yi. I mean, that would be an amazing result. And I think everyone would be looking at Fabi as a front runner in this event. They did before the tournament, but now they'd be looking at the standings and looking up at him.
One thing that I really appreciate about chess as a whole is how the game style can be so different from the personality type. And now I'm referring to actually Wei Yi, and how he can play so aggressively and so creatively and still be so humble and so kind and so calm at all the situations, personality-wise.
It's sort of the opposite. Oh, I guess this sounds harsh, but for example, Anish likes to troll on social media. He's very, talkative, but his style is actually a lot tamer. So maybe some players really act or are quite different than their chess style would indicate, even though all the great predecessors used to say, no, chess is a representation of life. But no, so many players have a completely different personality versus what you could call their chess personality.
At least we got one camera up here, it's Pozharevsky, but we're still missing Witty Alien.
Well, it's good that I see his stream open over there, and he is just having the time of his life, as he always seems to. And from the Black side, he's still doing well. He's ahead on the clock. That's huge at this stage, because the position is completely locked up for the most part. And look at this. He's playing aggressive moves that don't actually have a clear purpose at the moment. Like, what's his knight doing on the rim? Nothing all that much, but his opponent is thinking. And with Witty up 15 seconds, that lead on the clock is dwindling. I think we are in line for what could be a really fun finish, but Witty is worse, and there is going to be a critical idea at some point that he has to be on the lookout for. Is if White can push this pawn successfully, that could cause some problems in the Black position. But a different pawn push, you kind of live by the sword, die by the sword, as they say, and G4 is full-on aggression, and Witty, he's bringing his pieces backwards, but he still maintains a slight lead on the clock.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, are we building up for what is going to be a time battle that may end up with a flag here?
I think if White doesn't crash through in the next few moves, then yeah, we could be looking at a scramble to the finish. But right now, White's position is dominant, and Black doesn't have a single piece. Just look at that. Across his own third rank, Black's pieces cramped in their defensive. White has all of these pawns, and the problem when you have such a nice-looking position is you have choices, And choices are bad for clock management. And he just says, I'm going to punt the decision. I'm going to play on the queen side instead of pushing this pawn, which could give this square in the future. So Witty, the best thing he's doing, he's playing decent to good moves quickly, which is better than the perfect move slowly.
But Witty strikes me as the kind of guy who is pragmatic when it comes to those kind of things. Now you see he's just moving his knight back and forth as well.
Yeah, he's doing a little song and dance with that knight, and the knight is going to e8 back to f6. These squares here, you see they're bit of a repetition, but white may have something up his sleeve if black just continues to repeat, and white has pushed pawns forward. Pozharevsky could break through, and what I like what he did is he repeated because it actually wasn't dangerous to repeat. What I didn't like was that he spent quite a lot of time doing so. It's easier for me to say, I don't have the responsibility, and speaking of responsibility, this pawn was loose for a turn, wasn't captured, and now that strike, I was talking about this a while ago, it happened, and that is mission critical. This rook is loose, only one defender, and there are two attackers here along the file.
that face does not look happy right now. It's shirtless, and it's crushed by that pawn move. And it seems so dangerous. Once you get your pawns moved up so high, it's like any pawn move could be possibly detrimental for you.
Yes, because anytime a pawn attacks something, that piece has to move. The knight just scrambled into the position. That's a bit of good news for Witty, is this knight is very active. Here comes a queen, but unfortunately, a simple slide of the rook back here hits the queen. This knight is now hanging. It's captured. Witty is completely lost and down 15 seconds all of a sudden. Yeah, he's going down in this game. Oh, his king is just wide open as well. I mean, it went from bad to completely lost in just a couple turns. And there's a check. Oh, no checkmate because the queens were traded. That was a little sneaky thing. But unfortunately for Witty, he spent too much time trying to defend his king. And now it's checkmate in one. Game over.
But this was brilliantly played by Pozharevsky, though, because he did have to break through here. What was a really strong defensive stance from Witty.
Yeah, he played really, really well. And wow, what is going on here? All the pieces are gone. White just giving away every single piece, but also down a queen and down on time.
Yeah, I think we can safely assume that this is going to be a flag. And I like the laugh that comes after as well.
Yeah, he made us laugh. I mean, Eric Rosen, he likes to go for stalemate traps. He's known for the Rosen trap, and he was going for that here, right? If just a couple things went his way, the white king would have no legal moves, and that could be a stalemate, but not going to happen against Denis Lazovic.
I was just going to point out here, we see Denis Lazovic may have been frozen at the end there, but I don't think there's a trophy cabinet that's more well-known than Denis Lazovic's, because we saw him for so long, only that one room where he played all his chess. Sure, we know Wesley So's trophies quite well after some years as well, but when it comes to Lazovic, it's just, I feel like I know his room so well for never having been in Belarus.
I used to feel that about Arjun Erigaisi as well. Like there's a bit of a trophy collection there, and they keep adding trophies. But the good news for them is now they're at the age where they're winning money instead of physical trophies sometimes. So, well, speaking of money, we're getting closer to the money rounds. Not quite there yet.
I thought you were going to say, speaking of money, here's Niemann.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone in chess have the nickname Money? Like that'd be a pretty cool nickname, right? I feel like in sports, people get nicknames like that. I don't think anyone has that here. Also, kind of
few nicknames in chess in general, right?
That is true. That is true. Maybe you can start adding to the list.
Well, I will add that what we've seen on the screen for quite some time, Magnus won his first game of the day, but it's still just 1 out of 2 score because he forfeited his first round by not being here in time.
And the matchups get more difficult for Magnus, right? You win a game, you win 3, then you start playing all these tough grandmasters that are in the field. And this is a matchup of tough grandmasters. So Hans Niemann, he doesn't really need much introduction, but Martin Kravtsev, his opponent, does. He's a very strong player from Ukraine. I mean, he knows his openings extremely well. That's why these players are, I would say blitzing, but it's kind of like bullet at the moment, the speed with which they're playing. This is known theoretical territory. So white, if we do a quick material count, has a knight and a bishop that we can see here, and black has an extra rook. So it's a knight and bishop for rook and a couple pawns. That's the key. So when we do the math, that black has 7 pawns to white's 5, it's actually equal material in terms of piece value, but now it's about who can organize their pieces in an effective manner. So black king can now slide up, as it does. The black king is used as a weapon in the endgame, instructive for everyone out there that earlier stages of the game, you keep your king safe and sound, tucked away under the duvet in the corner. In the endgame, you join the forces, you get into the action, and in the future, if white is not careful, I mean, those pawns can start rolling, but that is why this rook and bishop are lined where they are, that black is not able to successfully move pawns just yet. And there's Kravtsev, there's Niemann, and now we have a real battle here where Kravtsev, he brings his knight back. This is a key concept for everyone, is rerouting your pieces, bringing your piece to the best possible squares. And this e3 square looks very juicy for the knight, and here it comes.
Just wanted to add in a little bit. I know we're digressing a little bit, but Fabiano Caruana has beaten Wei.
Wow.
That is a strong win. He moves to 2.5 out of 3 points. And having played then both Wei and Hikaru, that's having 2 wins against those guys. In addition, I will add that Sindarov looks like he's really taking hold a little bit of the position against Pragnananda after a crazy opening there.
Wow, a third round victory for Fabiano Caruana, and importantly, a quick one, right? You conserve some important energy as we get into this candidates tournament. It's still very early. All players will have their chances, but Fabiano jumping out like this knight to e3 to a quick lead, 2.5 out of 3. That's massive. That's really huge.
Magnus Carlsen has not been paired for round 3.
Does that mean that Magnus decided that he only wanted to play one game today? He wanted to show his face, and now that he won a game, he's out? Just to get warming up for a Grand Game?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, if there is an issue, I'm sure it will be blasted all over social media, as is customary these days. But hopefully, we find out what happened. And for Magnus, of course, we always hope that he's doing well, and he's got a big tournament starting tomorrow, as is Hans. And I'm not sure if Kravtsev is in that field, but we see the Fabiano in the ticker there, winning against Wei. But this game, it's one where my chess brain is swirling with possibility here. And I like what Kravtsev is doing. He's keeping more pawns on the board. So for everybody keeping track at home, when you have more pawns, it means fewer open files. The black rooks are lacking in opportunity. And this white knight, that's usually a good thing to have a knight in shining armor. It wants to get over here. And that's why Hans finally pushed this pawn up. He says no to the white knight galloping forward. The black king steps to the side. Maybe this next pawn will come. White's pieces are very awkwardly placed all of a sudden. I wouldn't be surprised if Kravtsev just shuffles back and forth. That was a very risky looking move from Hans, but he's bringing his second pawn forward. Mistakes are happening in this endgame of this stage, but I hate the location. I'm going to turn that yellow, this rook on the corner over here. It's just trapped by its own pieces, and it's not participating. So I think Kravtsev, he's working diligently, trying to shuffle about, keep about quality on the clock, but he needs to improve the location of his pieces, and I'm not quite sure how he accomplishes that feat because black's pawns are looking mighty steady in the center.
You asked about who was playing in the Grand Cave Freestyle Chess Open now. Just to mention a few here, we have Magnus Carlsen, Vincent Keimer, Abdus Turov, Duda, Dominguez Perez, Hans Niemann, Levon Aronian, Nepomniachtchi, Vacher Lagrave, Nihal Sarin, Paramak Sudlu, Avonder Liang, Fedoseev, Tabatabai, Chidamrov. It's an amazing field. Amazing field.
I was wondering when the list would end. I mean, just such a fantastic player after fantastic player. I mean, it promises to be super exciting. I'm really looking forward to watching that. And there's also the freestyle. There's the open classical chess alongside it, which will feature many strong grandmasters as well. But a lot of players in Title Tuesday, I guess, will take part in that starting tomorrour.
But how lucky are we in chess these days? We have all these guys playing in Title Tuesday. We have a candidates going on at the same time. And then tomorrow, we get the most amazing field play in a freestyle tournament. Right now, it is mayhem for those who enjoy watching chess.
Oh, yeah. Every day there's must-watch games, must-watch television, if you will. And I think that for a lot of the fans, you're just treated to such amazing chess day after day. All the time. They're great tournaments. Even those that don't have the implications of a world championship spot on the line. There are so many great events coming up. And, it looks like Arjun Erigaisi, I mentioned his trophy case. He's trying to add another Title Tuesday to his list of accomplishments.
He's also then missed round 1.
Oof. Hans Niemann, though, just in complete control. This game got out of hand. I mean, white's pieces were stuck. Black's pawns started mobilizing. And Kravtsev knows, look at him. That's a guy who knows that this game is completely over.
Yeah, but isn't that one of the things that has really defined Hans Niemann's rise to the top as a player lately? That he's become so methodical and stable in the way he's doing things?
It's huge. For any player who just kind of skyrocketed in their teenage years. And like inertia plays a big part, playing in enough events,
Well, for him, it also was so many out of board or outside of board issues that would affect you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to go through all of what he went through, regardless of anyone's take on it, that's just so much to deal with. And so for Hans, I mean, the way he's been playing over the board has in more measures, a really good word for it. And, he is becoming increasingly principled. He's not taking needless risks. And that's actually what plagues some of these players, is they're playing for victories instead of playing for the best move. And often those two go hand in hand. But if you're playing for result, you're not playing chess, which is a very objective game. And so, Hans gets another victory. He's such an amazing player, and he's just, starting what's going to hopefully a long career. Oh, speaking of long career, Alexander Rustemov here with the white pieces in this game against Jan Chistov-Duda. Rustemov, a well-respected grandmaster, plays online all the time. Like, he is a true veteran of the game of chess. And with the white pieces right now, he is better, and he's showing that technique. He is trading queens, which was a bad decision at this moment, but look at that. I knew this is what he had lined up. He is saying that I'm going to be better in this endgame because of the placement of some of the pawns. The knight can maybe reroute to a good square. The white rook is a bit more active. It does look like black should hold because this rook can go to squares like this. But I think that Rustemov, he's trying to use the clock as a weapon, even if now his position is no longer advantageous.
But I love that if you looked at these guys' video stream and guessed which player is going to use the clock to flag the other guy or try to build up towards it, I'm not sure that Rustemov would have come first to mind.
No, I mean, we spoke about Duda earlier. He is just one of the absolute best in all time controls. But Rustemov, he's not one of these players who is part of the generation where, you say, online, that's not for me. If you look at the top games on Chess.com, he's always playing. He is just someone who loves the game. He is such a strong player, has been for many, many years. And he knows that this endgame is objectively sound. You see the bar, it's even. But look at the clock, it is not. So who's playing for the win here? The guy who's up a pawn or the guy who's up, 5-6 seconds? Oh, black is going for it. This is a big moment for Duda, but he needs to move quickly, and he does just that. That was big because he's giving up an important pawn where the white king is, and white's pawns can march forward. But if the pawn marches too soon, black throws in this very nasty check. So it does seem like black is scoring this victory. Just when I was complimenting Rustemov, unfortunately for him, he bit off a little bit more than he could chew.
Really interesting endgame, though.
Yeah. And part of the reason I love Title Tuesday is the coach in me is I see so many interesting positions. I see how people think with mere seconds on their clock. And that's actually really good material for players out there trying to get better. If you're watching this right now, go back in this game. You saw that it was equal by what the engine said, and train yourself. If you have a sparring partner, put it on a board and see if you can actually hold it, or if you can even win from the black side up a pawn. And Rustemov was letting his clock fall here, but it was a good effort from him until suddenly things got out of control.
I do appreciate the take that you gave us, though, from Rustemov so much. How the ability to play chess on a top level every day online and really being a GM and still having good challenges. It must be amazing for those who's not used to finding that level of play on a daily basis.
Oh, he is always online. And I say that in a way that's like, I just respect his love for the game, right? That's somebody who is just loves the competition. He's playing in kind of every prize event that's on Chess.com as well. So casual games, prize event games, it doesn't matter. You'll see him there. And even Bullet.
Still some undecided games, but we're at least starting to see where it's not 3 out of 3 anymore. We're with Waldhausen on 20th, but right there we filled up with all people with perfect scores. And that means that we probably, not guaranteed, but probably have 20 players with 3 out of 3 going into round 4.
And we have a great matchup here. Hans Niemann against Nodirbek Yakubayev. I think people used to call him the other Nodirbek, and it's in jest, but I think it is a slight. I mean, this guy almost made the candidates, didn't he, in the World Cup? So he also beat Nodirbek, I remember, in a playoff match. They were tied for first after the event, and he beat his compatriot and friend. So this guy is a top-class player, and Hans knows it. This is a world-class matchup right here.
Isn't it funny, though, in retrospect, how crazy that Uzbeki Olympiad win seemed at the time and how natural it seems when you're looking at the names right now?
Yeah. You got Abdusattorov, Yakubayev, you've got Sindarov, you've got Vokidov and Vakidov. You've got many more players waiting in the wings. So, yeah, this is a country that has a wealth of talent They're super strong, and I mean, don't be surprised for the next bunch of Olympiads if they're right up at the top. And here, I mean, Yakubayev has the black pieces. He's playing what I would deem a very passive position. There's a bishop back here that's staring into a knight. This knight can move, but not only do you offer a trade, which weakens your pawns, but this knight from Hans, which is on the rim, would love to sink its teeth into a more aggressive square. They call it the knife on f5 or the knight on f5, because a knight from that square, it puts pressure on a pretty critical point in black's position. So right now, Nodirbek has all his bases covered, but he's very passive. GMs don't like to play like this. And he's just trying to find a move here. It's really not easy.
I was not thinking about future Olympiads that you were talking about. I was trying to think in my head, besides USA, who would be a favorite against Uzbekistan right now, especially with Russia not being able to field a proper team?
Oh, yeah, I mean, India, of course.
Yeah, of course, India.
These matchups are toss-ups at this stage. I mean, when you get down into it, certain teams may be a little bit lower on average rating, but have such strong talent just available. And Iran is a great example of this as well.
Yeah.
Of course, Alireza plays for France, but even after that, they were a very competitive team, spearheaded by Parham at the top. Amin Tabatabai as well has crossed 2,700. I don't know if he actually won the Reykjavik Open, but he was 7 out of 8. He started with 7 wins in a row. I mean, he seemed unstoppable. So we went to Sina Movahed, who's going to join those ranks. So just so many strong players. And, Uzbekistan, very, very strong. And I don't know what happened in this game, I'm going to be honest with everybody watching, that before I started talking, the position was closed and passive. And this often happens. When players are passive and they're desperate for space, they lash out, and they do so at the wrong moment, because what black has done is thrown kingside pawns up the board, but there's a black king that is in the center, and I'll put it in red because Hans will be smelling blood here, that this knight can join the party, threaten a fork. This flank is ready to be opened up. In fact, white is threatening to just win a pawn directly. This is as bad as it gets, and Hans, I mean, he looks cool as a cucumber because he's like, this one's over. Black has played a lot of iffy moves, and his position is strategically unsound, and it's about to collapse.
He looks extremely comfortable here, Hans.
Yeah. I mean, I think that even as strong as Yakubayev is, players much lower rated than Hans would be looking at this position like, I got this. This is over. And I mean, look at all these critical, juicy light squares. I mean, Hans is almost like, I can't believe how easy this game has become. And that's sometimes what happens when you're playing principal moves and your opponent starts playing wild chess. You can very simply take advantage of it by continuing to play in a strategically sound manner. The knights are fantastic right now for Hans. He apparently made a bit of a slip. Maybe he gave black some time to finish the development, but his plan is very clear. He's giving up a bishop for a knight. He is trying to open up a line for his rook. A good way to develop your rook is to get rid of the pawn in front of it, and here that would just be a trade. And if that trade doesn't happen, Hans is threatening a pawn that's now under attack many times by 3 of white's pieces. So white well ahead. The game is not over. I do want to make that part clear that there's still some serious work left to be done, but white is up by 1.5 minutes and has a clear, massive advantage.
Just some of the other top tables. There is an Andraikin that is in trouble against Cristobal Enriquez. We have a Bortnik that was in major trouble against Rasulov, but may be now trying to fight back in that game. We have an equal position between Puranik and Duda. Other than that, it seems to be a lot of quite equal positions, still early goings in a lot of these games.
Okay, it's a good update. I mean, we can stay here, hop around. We're spoiled, right? That keeps using that expression. We are spoiled. But this game, I mean, black just castled long into what seems like it's going to be a blistering attack. And Hans, once again, making a simple move, but has a very devastating threat. That queen is just trying to join the party and go for the mating attack. So black needs to be very careful. He slides his king over. Perfectly decent choice. Don't be surprised if Hans... There's one. Here comes the second. You double your rooks on a semi-open file. Open for white's rooks, closed for black's. And so black at some point may have to play this pawn push just to save face, just to keep things closed. White will then use another piece to open that side of the board up. You're starting to get the picture here, that black can defend move by move, but there's a new threat, a new piece that's coming in. And when you're down what's over 1.5 minutes now against a player as strong and tenacious as Hans Niemann, you just really aren't surviving a position like this. And you may survive in terms of, okay, Hans might start speeding up just to try to flag you, but no, that's not happening.
Just an update on Magnus Carlsen. He sent me a message now because I was asking why he only played one game, and it was not attempting any kind of show. He was on an airplane going to Germany, tried to get it to work. He desperately tried to get the internet to work, but it was just too tough. So he had the one game. And I think it's also the idea that if you start playing on the second or third game and you start disconnecting and stuff, you affect too much of the tournament.
Yeah.
It's not fair to actually do it like that. So I think he felt, now I'm putting words in his mouth, but my take was that he felt that it was just not fair to keep going.
I think that's reasonable, because if he does start winning and then at a critical moment, suddenly he's on an airplane and the Wi-Fi loses connection, that does change the complete top of the tournament. So Magnus, now we know, is on his way. Hopefully it's a smooth journey for him and the family. Yeah, that's good to know that it was just Magnus trying to get in there. The dedication is real from Magnus Carlsen.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's going to be a smothered checkmate. That's my thought here.
Look at this. The 16-year-old that we just followed earlier, Pozerevsky, who beat Witty Alien. He's now at 3.5 out of 4. That's a great score for Semyon Pozerevsky.
Yeah, he's a known name. He is really talented online, over 2,900. I think he's even been over 3,000, which is such a high rating. It probably puts you at the top 70 to 100 players. I'm not entirely sure these days because more and more players are reaching that threshold. But Pozerevsky, great player, young, hungry, and only going to get better. And oh my goodness, I mean, I'm just waiting for a checkmate over here. But Hans continues to encroach on Yakubayev's king. But Yakubayev, to his credit, putting up some really good defense. And wow, the bar actually just went to the middle, which means that, in fact, black is even slightly better all of a sudden. I don't believe it. From a practical point of view, given the clock situation, Hans still has to be doing well. But I think the key here is that black's pieces are now freer, and suddenly the white king isn't so safe. More black pawns can start marching up the board. So Hans's king suddenly in a bit of an iffy spot, but he still remains well ahead on time. And ooh, that's a game ender right there. Yakubayev made the move I suggested. That's a double attack that he wasn't expecting for sure.
I told you earlier, Bortnik was in trouble against Rasulov. Are we surprised that Bortnik fought back when we're reaching a later stage and won that game?
Never surprised when Bortnik wins. Doesn't matter who his opponent is. When Bortnik plays chess, I often expect good results from him.
I'm more surprised by what is happening now with Cristobal Enriquez against Dmitry Andraikin, where it seems troublesome for Andraikin.
Ooh, okay. Well, now that Hans Niemann, he does pick up a bishop and a point. We can go right there. And Enriquez, he's very strong. He's such a strong player. He's been around for a while. Andraikin, I mean, that guy played in the candidates. Speaking of that tournament, he's done really well in the FIDE World Cup. But right now, he is doing terribly in this game because I can't even count. Is he down 3 pawns? Yeah, that's not going to help. That's not going to happen for him. I think that now all white needs to do is start pushing those pawns up one by one. But sometimes when you have too many pawns, you start spending precious seconds determining which pawn is best to move. And now that Andraikin is actually up a couple of seconds, well, now it's evening back up on time, that does give him legitimate hope because, Cristobal has to move. He's slowing down, and this game is so far from over. He's not going to win a knight anytime soon. Now there are checks. Now the knight's coming in. I've changed my tune completely. I think that before it seemed like it was going to be a surefire win for Enriquez, but right now I'm looking at this and saying there are a lot of checks. You can keep checking. I mean, that king can run away, but at some point it's going to become a bullet scramble, and ooh, that might be it though. This knight is coming. The rook is kind of trying to join as well. This e-pawn is passed. So if you can't stop this e-pawn successfully, then the game should be over. But look at him, just being tricky as he can be. But that's that. Well done by Cristobal.
Well, I'm still going to wait for this time to finish up, though, even though I do understand what you're saying here, but it's 10 seconds left. You've already called it. Just to remind everyone, we're going to have a short break after these game 4s. And looking at other boards right now, it's a lot of games that are finishing up at the moment. And we have Duda is looking like he's winning now. We just had a win from Enriquez. That's a good game.
Yeah, no,
strong win.
Yeah, it's a good result for him. And Draken, I'm not used to seeing his like king side so collapse and down so many pawns. He's a very solid player. But when you play someone like Enriquez, I mean, he can beat anyone. I say that time and time again. It's just true. And we just see the standings now. I mean, lots of players there huddled up with 4 out of 4. Some big names for sure.
I think Duda is going to be probably the 9th name to move up to that 4 out of 4 list. We have Maxudlo, Enriquez, Drigalov, Bortnik, Ohanyan, Nguyen, and Minle, and Neiman. It's there with Duda to finish it up. This is set up for the perfect day. We're going to have a lot of entertainment today. But before that, we're going to have a quick little break. Welcome back. We are on a break here waiting for what is going to be the 5th game of this 5th game week of the 3rd split, the spring split of Title Tuesday. And that goes to show all those numbers that I'm counting up. Imagine we get this on a weekly basis, Robert. Just get to sit back and have the most amazing time 52 weeks out of the year.
Oh, of course. And every single week there's a Title Tuesday, and every single week we're get all these big names. And it's funny, you said my name, and I looked out of my periphery, and there's someone named Robert Gabriel there. I was like, oh, Robert's on. Let's go. I'm not rooting for that player. I don't even know who it is, but you have to root for a fellow namesake.
As we can see, 9 players right now with a perfect score. We have 15 players with 3.5 points or better. We know that Magnus was unable to continue here. He was really trying to. He was trying to play for an airplane, but he ended up with 1 win, and then he had to say, sorry, this is not going to work. So he then left before the 3rd game. But I want to just move slightly over to what is happening in the candidates right now, because we had an early win today. Fabian Caruana, who beat Vai. Right now, we have the probably most interesting game when it comes to the young players who we believe may be fighting for this candidate's win as a whole, Pragnananda and Sindarov. It's been a crazy game, but right now it does look as though Javakir is putting up a bit of a pressure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do a quick material count in that game. It looks like white has an extra knight for 2 pawns, but the black king is safe and sound, castled as it should be. The white king is wide open. So, I mean, my first take is definitely that black should be having more fun here. But the problem in positions like this is they're reliant on dynamism and what's often a vague term of compensation, right? We're told, like, I have compensation for that material imbalance. But what does that mean? Sometimes it's very clear. It's clear to the eye, oh, that king is open, I'm going for the attack. Other times it's actually really not clear. Like, how does the attack continue? And you have to transition from attacking into just, no, my 2 pawns, my space, that's good enough for now. I'm just going to put all my pieces on good square. So I actually look at that position and say it's anybody's game. It's still early stages. Whereas I see pulled up a new game between Hikaru and Anish. Yeah, that one is a lot different. The vibes are different in this one.
Is there any chance for Anish to pull up an upset here with the black pieces?
He's got the better position. I mean, the problem for Hikaru is he's got this light square bishop that's just stuck behind a wall of his own pawns. And typically, for bishops to thrive, they need open space, open diagonals. Knights are better in closed positions. And because the position is quite locked, and bishops inherently are stuck to their own diagonal, the knight can move from light square to dark square. And eventually, if that knight gets to where the queen currently is, and that's center in the Hikaru game with Anish, then Hikaru would be in trouble. But that's a long journey. From f6 to d4, it takes quite a number of moves.
It was interesting. We were talking about personalities earlier. We were talking about Anish being the jokester of the chess tour in a sense. And then being this very stable player, extremely good defender. Is he going to be one of the deciding players for others here? Because he can always take the half point with a good game against anyone. But to break through there would really mean a bonus half point that is not typical to pick up.
Yeah, for Anish,
there's a lot of spoilers in this tournament, aren't there?
Well, Anish entered the event thinking he could win it, right? He won the Grand Swiss to get there, so he was probably feeling quite high about his chances. The thing about a player in his spot, though, is because Anish Giri right now, he has a half a point out of 2. If he continues trailing, let's say he makes a draw in a number of games, at some point he's going to take a risk. Because in the candidates, unlike most other events, it's first place or last place, right? Everything after first is last, except if you're Ding Liren and Magnus steps out. Then second place is also first place. But in all seriousness, at this stage, like you will then have to take a risk, and that can benefit your opponent. So that's why some critics of the round robin, there's some validity to that, because let's say you play somebody in round 4, they're in good form, then they start losing a few games, or they're not playing so well, then you get them as a different player. It's almost like a different event in its entirety. So
they're a little thought up.
yeah, and they're like, well, I need to win, so I'm going to play wild, or I'm going to stay up all night playing bullet chess, as has happened, right? These things, these change the nature of an event, and so if you play someone in round 8 versus playing them in round 12, that can be a really big difference. And so the round robin, I think it's good that you get to play everybody with both colors, but it really depends on what form that opponent is in.
And I got to mention the 2 last players here as well, whose game we haven't talked about today, Andrei Esipenko and Matthias Bluebaum, because we've had pushovers in the past in the candidates. What kind of battle do you think these guys are going to put up?
Yeah, everyone is looking at these two like, no, they're really serious opponents. They're not circling the player and saying, this is going to be my point today. And that has been the case in some massive events in the past for sure. But Bluebaum, I think that's the person that people, besides the great Bluebaum sweep, right? Going 14 out of 14. He might do that with the draws. He is an incredibly solid player. He's extraordinarily well prepared. It's clear that he's a pretty jovial guy from all the interviews I've seen. I don't know him personally. And I think that he's going to be true to his style. And the onus is on the opponents to beat him, and that's not going to be a very easy task.
Who's winning the candidates?
Well, I mean, if you put odds right now, Fabiano is 2.5 out of 3, so I think good odds on him, but it's way too early to decide.
Who's winning Title Tuesday?
That's a really good question. I mean, it's always a wonderful time at Title Tuesday, and we have wonderful time here. Min Lei against Hans Niemann. If I look at the list of players at the top, there are so many big names here. I mean, Hans is always going to be. I think Duda's in really, really good form, and I think that I'm going to choose him. But any of these players, even players at 3 out of 4, could easily win this tournament.
Niemann against Min Lei. That's. This is about the time when it starts getting a lot tougher. You're not going to have easy opponents anymore when you go into round 5.
Definitely not. And I mean, Min Lei, you see the rating there, 3179. That might even be underrated for him at this stage. He's a bullet beast. He's great at blitz, and he's also a bit of a systems player. What do I mean by that? It has been used in a derogatory sense in the past. I don't really know why. That it's like, someone can only play the certain openings that they know. And that's not a fair criticism, because Min Lei plays his openings at an extraordinary level. And when there's no increment, look at the time. So when you play systems you often gain a sizable lead on the clock. White is as solid as it gets. You look at a position like this, first thing you want to look at, besides the material count, is pawn structure. White's pawns, the base of the pawn chains, the little pawn chains, are safe and sound. Black now just made a risky move because that's the base of this little pawn chain here, and that can become a target. If White is able to reroute this bishop into the center, that pawn's directly under attack. This bishop here is always annoying in these London-type setups because that diagonal is under White's control. So Hans Niemann right now, down a minute on the clock. Black's play is more difficult than his opponent's because White has good control of the center. There are individual moves that look fun and entertaining, knight up into the center, but then a white rook slides over, applying immediate pressure. So I would have to say I really like this position from the white side. Easier moves to make. I think right now this move here from Min, bringing his bishop forward, threatening to get this queen and this pawn, that looks really good to me. He can also decide what he wants to do with his rook in the corner. He doesn't have to stay there for the whole game. So many different options here for Min. I think that he really needs to keep the pace. That would be the biggest thing for his winning chances. And he's going for the trade of dark square bishops as predicted. Hans is speeding up, so finding his comfort zone to some extent here. And for Min, he can double his rooks on this d-file if he wants. This rook can come up, a second rook can join the party. That is a bit dangerous by advancing your rook so far, just because they're easier to target. But I think right now, you couldn't really ask for more from Min Lei. But I do think him slowing down, that is now playing to Hans' benefit. He's almost like smiling over there.
I find myself always gravitating towards the Bortnik table somehow because so far, this is his 5th game today. He's been behind in every position from the get-go. I mean, at least according to the evaluation bar. And we saw him in the first game where he seemed to be much more concerned about drinking his Starbucks coffee than he was about playing chess for some time. He is such a relaxed character. It's almost scary.
Yeah, Bortnik, he's here for a good time and often for a winning time. So we always can tune into his game and know that we'll have a fun time spectating. But it looks like, so we see a note up at the top there. Both players blundering in this 3.5 out of 4 matchup. Oh my goodness. Should I pull that game up? Because that doesn't happen very often at this high level where players are just down a queen for what? For a rook. Wow, that's a complete surprise. So Semyon Pozarevsky blundered and Jose Ibarra blundered back.
And blundered even worse.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is that game is one where it looks like Jose Ibarra down a queen for just a rook. Still some compensation. I mean, in the sense that Black's king could be open at some point, but no, that's just blunder central in that game. Unlike the one that we have on our screen where Min Lei continues to play good move after good move. And one thing I'm considering, not my pieces, so I like to sacrifice them, is it worth giving up a rook for a knight and a pawn in the center? It does clear the space. You see that Black's knight and pawn here are doing some good work, just clogging in the middle of the board. So I would be tempted to take this knight. I think that he can play a move like knight in to c6, just attacking this rook back here. Those moves look good, but you want to at least consider this exchange sacrifice because it's not that much in the point value, right? A rook is worth 5, a knight and a pawn is worth 4, let's call it. So there's not much in it there, but white does gain complete control of the space, and here we have it. That exchange sacrifice has indeed occurred for Min Lei giving up some material, and for Hans, I mean, he's going to try to bring his rook forward, but then white can push even more pawns. I'm starting to really, really appreciate this from Min Lei's perspective. And there goes the pawn. Hans's rook is active, but it's also a bit over on the side. A move like rook here is tempting, but you have to be very careful. And Min says, don't even think about it. I mean, this is just amazing coordination from Min. All these pieces that I've highlighted in blue, every single move has a purpose. It's really, really lovely stuff from Min. And Hans is doing the best he can, giving him credit. He needs desperately to open some lines for his pieces. He brought his rook behind a pawn, and chef's kiss. That move by Min Lei, understanding that Hans' idea to gain some much-needed activity, that would perhaps give Black a chance to even play for more than just an attempt at equality. So what does Min do? He clogs the lane. Hans says, no, I can't go for that. Brings his queen back. There will be an opportunity later to push over here, but Min is taking his time and going back and forth. This queen exchange offer, I simply love it. Just really beautiful. You would think that with Black having a rook and white having a knight and pawn, that's more material for Hans. But the problem is rooks need open files, and the Black rooks do not have them. So this idea from Min Lei is really high-class stuff. But he's so okay trading queens that he even goes in here, forcing the queens off the board, because this queen is so active that I think if you just move your queen back here to a passive square, then white can try to kick this rook out, and actually that might just trap the rook. So this is a fantastic series of moves from Min Lei, who's not much better.
Have you seen a more content face than what we see from Min Lei right now? That's the kind of face I put on if I do something really well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just marching forward right now to the beat of his own drum, really. And it's honestly the type of position that looks straightforward. We can see that white is better, not completely winning. But if I had this position from the Black side, I might assume that I'm completely lost. And for Hans, I think he's going at some point soon to try this move to get his rook out. He instead brings his rook this way, going for some pawns. But I'm wondering how he intends to stop this pawn from marching forward if Min decides to press it, because this knight covers the queening square, and that should suffice for enough for victory. And you see Hans, he registered with him right there. He's like, oof, that's not good. No, this is knight's going to go on a merry-go-round, right? It's like on a little carousel tour, and it's just going to start attacking things, and eventually this pawn is going to go through. And Min, he plays his pawn here. The idea is to get the knight out. He's actually sacrificing his knight. It's a move that I did not first calculate, because it's hard to just give up your pieces like this. But he determined that the second pawn joining the party would have been good enough. And Hans now getting some much needed activity. His rook is going to try to come down here with check, scoop up this pawn. And that pawn that I said that Hans needed to trade, that's going to be dangerous as dangerous gets, because if that B pawn is won with that check over there, then suddenly it's Hans with the pass pawn as well. So up goes White's pawn. Here comes Hans wrapping around, going for this pawn here. White will try to get this queen here, but that's why Hans stopped. He went rook in the C line behind this pawn. He wants to trade over here. So really, like, this is a really combative game right now, and Min is known to twirl his hair. I'm never quite sure if it's just like, something he does, or if it's when he's nervous. But right now I feel like this is a nerve-wracking position, because it went from much better, if not winning, to one where he's seeing that Hans has played great defense to try and take down this pawn.
I always thought that Min has probably the strongest hair growth that you can find in any man, because he doesn't seem to be affected by it in a way.
Yeah, Min is like, he's timeless, right? He's got the username Wonderful Time. I don't think he's having a particularly good time right now, because he might get flagged. So Min is an elite bullet player. Hans is also really, really good at bullet. And when you have this kind of situation where you were better all game, now you just have to prove the draw, but you're down less than half the time of your opponent. And what Hans is doing well is he's not going to repeat the position. So if you repeat the position 3 times, it's a draw. So even though king and rook versus king and rook, or king and rook and pawn versus king, rook and pawn like we have now, is a draw objectively, Hans is just going to keep this going. He's going to bring his king back, and he's just going to shuffle around and try not to repeat moves if he can avoid it. And he's doing a really good job of that. At some point, after repeating twice, he'll push a pawn. But Min is super fast, so we'll see if Min has it. Oh, but rook against rook is coming, and we'll see Min has to show the speed right now. He's under 12 seconds, or he's just about there, and he's just moving around. 50 move rule, everybody. 50 moves without a capture or a pawn push is a draw. Will Min be able to get those 50 moves down under 10 seconds? Goes Min late, he's shuffling back and forth. Watch out, a rook check would have been deadly, but White is giving the checks, shielding his king, trying to trade rooks desperately. Hans avoiding it. Now Hans down to 13 seconds himself. It seems like Min is the faster player. That time advantage is shrinking. Turn after turn, that is a draw. Rooks are off, game over, split point.
That was actually Neiman pulling the emergency brake. Mm-hmm. He was getting scared here. I have a proposition for you. I'm going to do it quickly now because we're going into the scores. But should we, for this format where we're doing esports rather than chess for some reason, think about removing the 50 move limit and making it maybe a 35 move limit, because it would fit this kind of game better? Or is that just so ingrained in chess that it's impossible to do anything about it?
Such a good question. And I've never thought about kind of changing the rules in that way. Like, I've thought, you can add increment way late in the game, like after move 60, that has happened before. But I need to think on that one. I don't want to give you an immediate answer just because it really is, tinkering that rule could be a difference maker.
Because I feel like the no increment has truly taken this game to be proper esports. And it's really found that justification for making it part of the Esports World Cup and really integrating it. That's why I love the 5+0. Yeah. But I also feel like the 50 move rule is not adapted for that kind of chess.
Right. It does favor the person with more time. Like, you're just going to, because 50 is a lot of moves to make. And sorry, I laughed not at anything we're talking about. I saw Duda's queen on h5, and I'm like, this is normally what beginners do. They're taught to go for the scholar's checkmate, it's called. And Duda brought his queen out over here. So I don't know. I would be so curious to know why he did this. Like, what about his opponent, or what about this game made him want to bring his queen out? Typically, everybody, we don't do that, because when black develops, it comes with a tempo. If your queen is hit, it generally has to move. So this is fascinating. It's working to his advantage in terms of the clock situation. Look at Duda. Is he listening to some music over there? He's bopping his head. He's having a good old time.
Drigalo was wondering, what the heck is this guy doing to me?
Yeah, this is actually not a still frame. This is really Drigalo's face. He's like, what's going on here? What is this nonsense with the queen coming out early? But Duda, I wonder how much he's played this before. Does he actually have experience in it? Is he just like sort of testing the waters? Because objectively speaking, black is doing well. Black has just developed.
I got to tell you who's on the 4th table right now.
Okay.
His name is Arjun Erigaisi. He was a sit-out for game 1, and he's now on the 4th ranked table.
Yeah, he's just, back with a vengeance. I mean, Arjun, we're around 6, so he's going to have 4 out of 5. I mean, it's 4 wins in a row is definitely almost expected for him at this stage. But yeah, now he's playing Min Lei, so the it's what we talked about even when Magnus joined late. You start winning, rattling off those victories, and then you get to play Wonderful Time. You get to play Duda. It just starts getting really challenging. But if Arjun catches fire, there's really very few that can stop him.
Problem being, we talked about it earlier, he's going to be losing on tiebreakers regardless. Reason why is, well, first of all, he has the no score from one game. So you accumulate the points of the people you play. But just to make it worse, when you start out with a loss, you will then face weaker players who are then less prone to take points afterwards, and that becomes a double whammy. So he's going to be last almost regardless when it comes to the tiebreaker.
It's true. So if there's a big tie, you should expect Arjun to be down on that list. And so he knows that. And that means that if he's in a situation come round 9, 10, 11, he may have to play for a win even if the position calls for equality. And I mean, this game started kind of weirdly with Duda bringing his queen out to the rim of the board the first few turns, second turn in fact, but right now it's actually quieted down. Not a single pawn has been traded. There has been a swap of a light square bishop from white for a knight for black. In closed positions, knights are usually better than bishops, but this isn't a static position. Black soon, if you allow him, could make a move like pawn to f5. The reason why that would be good is you're trying to open up the bishop. You can also try for pawn similarly to d5 to open up the bishop. So this bishop at the moment isn't so strong, but it can improve its situation very shortly. But Duda is going to play on the dark squares. When your opponent has a bishop on the light squares, you want to play around that piece. So using the dark squares is what he'll aim for. And ooh, well, he'd actually play tactically instead of strategically. This is a big moment by Jan Krzysztof. He gets this push because if this pawn were taken, the opening of the E-line, rooks win stare downs with queens, and that's why Drigalov says, I will keep this status quo for now. I'll keep everything locked up. If exchanges happen, that only helps the location of white's pieces. So this is very bad news for Drigalov. So Duda has done everything he wants. He's laughing. I don't know if he's like listening to George Carlin in the background or he's just, having a good old time with his chess. But his opening has worked perfectly because it's a locked position and the knights are better than bishops.
It's a little bit limited what the players are allowed to listen to when it comes to this tournament since, well, they can't be taken in talk. But I do remember back to the Champions Chess Tour in Miami back in the day where Hans, for example, said the words, the chess speaks for itself, but where Magnus was laughing so hard as he was playing because he was listening to a Norwegian comedy podcast while he was playing. That seems insane for me. I'm having a hard time focusing on the board. So,
well, when I was growing up playing, people would just like listen to music, or that was the norm at the time. Because, just speaking truthfully, like at that point, people weren't so worried about people being able to cheat because technology wasn't as advanced. So people would have their Walkman, just putting on their music. Now nobody can even have like a watch on, right? It's like the rules have changed quite a lot because the world has changed, technology has changed. But what hasn't changed is Jan Krzysztof Duda being an extremely strong player, and now he's putting the clamps on here. He's just saying, you're not going to open this position. I'm just going to shuffle around for a long time. Eventually I'm going to even pretend like my knights are doing something. You're going to get a little worried. You're going to spend time, and then I'm going to use the clock as my greatest weapon. So right now, all 8 pawns are on the board for each side. So the knights are jumping around, hopping to find good squares. I mean, look at this knight. What's it doing? I don't know. What's this knight doing? I'm not sure either. Where can it go? That's going to be the magical mystery tour, but I don't really know what either side is supposed to do. But the side that controls the pawn breaks is often the side with the advantage. And here, this is one pawn break. White can push forward. White can start trying to throw pawns up where his rooks are. So Duda up about 25 seconds now, has, I would say, an easier to play position. Drigalov has done nothing, I would say, majorly wrong, but I do think that the clock is going to be the biggest problem for him.
2 minutes, 10 seconds then for Duda. It's 1:51 here for Drigalov. I'm looking at some of the other tables right now. We could say that a player who has already won, Arjun Erigaisi. He beat Min Lei already.
And that's bad news for the rest of the field because that means Arjun is feeling it. And he's probably mad that he missed the first round, but it hasn't hurt him too much. Oh, my goodness.
Talking about personalities that don't always match their persona on the chessboard, if Erigaisi on a chessboard can smell blood, he's vicious. In real life, he's the kindest man you could ever meet.
Yeah. Quite soft-spoken, very gentle. But yeah, when it comes to the chess, he takes no prisoners. He is willing to be as combative as is necessary. And I see this ticker up the top. I asked the question. Thanks so much to the team for getting this information that that Duda brought his queen out early to h5. He had never done that before. So not that there's preparation going on in Title Tuesday anyway, but it couldn't have been prepared. And whoa, I wasn't prepared for what just happened. The rook got trapped here. And just like in the game between Min Lei and Hans Niemann, we have a material imbalance. In this particular game, it is a knight and a pawn for a rook. But excuse me for saying it out loud, these rooks are not really rooks. Like, can I take the title away from them? They're staring into their own pawn. They're not getting any activity whatsoever. And this knight is hopping around. At some point, white can throw this pawn forward, trying to open up some more ground. And the 40-second lead on the clock, that is more than sufficient for, it's not in the eval bar. The evaluation bar up at the top, it talks about the position on the board. But if we can incorporate time as part of that function, we would say that white is just winning at this stage. Like, this is just too much to overcome if you're Sergei Drigalov. And the knights, they're going back and forth at some point. Duda might push his pawn. He could take it one step at a time, just, decide where all his pieces want to go before he eventually pushes pawn. So objectively speaking, the chessboard itself, maybe black is holding. But given the time situation, if black holds this game, it would be quite a miracle because Duda well ahead on time, and he's the one who controls the position. So the rook is sliding now for Duda back and forth. The black rook is back on the starting square. We see at some point, there it is, the pawn goes forward for Duda, and that was a big moment because Drigalov had to spend a turn, at least a little moment, determining whether to capture or not. And here they go. All of Duda's pieces are free-flowing.
Hans Niemann has beaten the 16-year-old Pusarevsky.
Okay, Hans in great form today. He held against Min Lei. That was a tough position for him, but now he beats a dangerous 16-year-old, and we see that Hans in great shape, just a half point off of a perfect score. And so he, what he doesn't want to see though is Jan Krzysztof Duda run away, right? Because then you get into that psychology of like, I need to beat this guy rather than a draw is acceptable. Because Jan Krzysztof Duda, like Arjun Erigaisi, can catch fire at any moment and has already caught fire in this tournament.
How possible is it to maintain this with 22 seconds?
Impossible. Well, that's a little harsh. Somebody maybe out there in the world, Ali Reza Firouzja, could maybe hold this game. But I mean, you're playing against Duda, who's a beast, and then you've got no activity for yourself. So like, this is the most active black can get, is like putting a rook on these squares. So now you're just shuffling, and at the right moment, this is going to happen. The arrow that I'm showing is white is going to... Okay, that is a way to get activity, but it's also a way to give up all your pawns. So that's what I meant, is that the only activity that black was able to now secure was by giving away material, because pawns block rooks. Rooks love open files, pawns block files. So black gave away all the pawns, and now you see where those pawns are. They're marching forward, about to become queen. Oh, okay, a little bit of a trick there, but that's why Duda slowed down. He didn't want to allow these rooks to take his pawn, but he's still up so much time. And even if he loses one pass pawn, the other ones will determine the outcome of this game.
And even if he was to save the position, he still wouldn't have the time to do anything with a saved position. So I guess it's a catch-22 here for Drigalov.
Yeah, maybe catch 21, because that's the amount of seconds Duda had remaining there on the clock. But Duda...
That was sharp. That was good.
Thank you. Well, not nearly as sharp as not just Duda, but I haven't even really spoken about him. Parham Maghsoodloo, perfect score as well.
Yeah. So they're probably going to play each other right now, Maghsoodloo against Duda, if for some reason that kind of fits the black-white draw here. But otherwise... Yeah, you were saying it's quite easily number 17 on the list, Arjun Erigaisi, who may come from behind here.
Yeah, but it's the point you made from the beginning. His tie breaks are really bad, so he'll always be at the bottom of a score group. So Arjun, he's really in a big tie from 4th to 17th, but his tie breaks are not going to be good, so he needs to pretty much win all the games.
Only person who is ahead of him, or the person who is right ahead of him, who also has a bad tiebreak, is Nepo, because Nepo also lost the first round, and there you see how vulnerable you are to a first-round loss.
Wow. So Nepo also stormed back. That's going to be important as these games continue here. And we have Arjun. We've been talking so much about him, but I think it's the first game of his that we're actually going to see. And he's got the white pieces against none other than Hans Niemann. So we've got two marquee matchups on these top two boards, and this one's starting out quietly, but Arjun, it may start quiet, but neither of these players are really that peaceful at their core on the chessboard.
This is such a great chance for Erigaisi because he's playing white against Hans to begin with, but it's also players half a point ahead who will be contending for the win here. If he wins this outright, he's going to be ahead of Niemann, and you also have the top players who's playing each other. This is a chance to really put yourself in position right now.
Totally. And when you float up, because Hans has more points than Arjun does, Hans 5.5 out of 6, Arjun 5 out of 6, that helps your tie breaks. Whenever you're playing people with more points, that's going to be good for your end result, and especially because Hans is not done, right? He's going to gain more points along the way. So this would be a massive game for Arjun. And on the flip side, for Hans, beating Arjun with black potentially, that would be just so big for him and his confidence the rest of the way. But I do like the start of this game from Arjun's perspective, because Arjun has bishops that are staring across an open board, and X marks the spot, but here these are the diagonals that Arjun is working with, and he's rerouting his pieces. And this is what we call a hanging pawn structure in chess, where these two pawns here in the center, they can be really good, but they can also be weaknesses. And you see Hans, he's not really thrilled with the position. It's dynamic, but it's also loose. And if you ever push a pawn, say this one goes forward, you hand white this critical square. So these pawns, they often like to stay where they are until the exact right moment, and maybe it's worth considering in the future a strike to open up this really long diagonal. But the hanging pawn structure is something that really very few people on this earth, either past or present, have perfected. Such a difficult strategic idea of how to use these pawns. And Hans is doing well right now, improving the location of his pieces, but at some point or another, you're going to be tempted to push something. You don't want to sit forever, but sometimes sitting is actually the best practice. And Hans, look at him. He's making these little, this is out of the corner of his eye. He's lifting an eyebrow. We don't have Arjun on camera, but I'm guessing exactly how Arjun looks, as determined as ever as he's trying to make some progress on this board.
Which position would you prefer here, black or white at this board?
Oh, well, he made a big move just now, so it's getting more and more dynamic. I would prefer the white side, even after that move. I like the move that Hans just played, but I've always struggled with as I mentioned, the hanging pawns. Because let's say, as just happened, you push it, then what? Now your pawn's under attack. If you take, and white takes back with the queen, black is saddled with these bad pawns over here. These two pawns are split, and a pawn's best friend is another pawn. So what black would love to do is shift the pawn over to connect the pawns. That's not legal, unfortunately. So I do think that the strategic elements, and I'm quite a strategic player, I would prefer to have the white side.
I'll just add now from the candidates that Yesipenko and Bluebaum have drawn in the candidates today.
Okay, so Bluebaum, the perfect Bluebaum start continues, 3 draws in a row. And for Yesipenko with black, that's the result you often aim for. So I think that's good for both players, because Bluebaum will make his mark on the tournament. He is really strong. People make jokes, all this stuff, but he's really, really strong, and he's capable of beating anybody in this field. And especially if he finds his footing and feels like things are going his way, watch out for him later on.
I know it's very easy to repeat a question like I did before when the evaluation has changed, but just from your human perspective, do you see this as better for Niemann right now?
I don't see it as better for him. It's such a good question, and it's such a interesting moment to pick it, because it's all about how we approach positions. And right now, if we do a quick material count, because white's pawns are so split, it may be easy to forget, or maybe not to realize in the first place, white's up a pawn. But white also has the pair of bishops, but is it a good bishop pair? What's that bishop doing? It's very passive on its starting square for now. But I think why I like this position for black is that the activity is very clear. When your opponent is a dark square bishop, I'm kind of hammering on about this, use the light squares. Look at all of black's pieces, on the light squares. We've got some really well-situated pieces. Perhaps this is a move you don't take for granted, but you could have pushed his pawn to keep that control, but instead he trades queens. Even after the queen trade, your dark square bishop is useless. It's not moving anywhere, and the activity that black has, that's worth the pawn that's sacrificed. So I do think that at the moment, Hans is doing quite well, but that could change quickly.
Min Lei winning his game after getting the loss to our Argentinary guys earlier.
Needed bounce back,
Yeah, still though, I feel like Min Lei being a point and a half back, it's too far right now. It's gonna take something magical for him.
When you have to rely on other people to start doing the work for you, that's when it becomes problematic. So Min needs, let's say, Parham to stop Duda, but if Parham wins, then he's still perfect 7 out of 7. So you can only rely on people so far, but at some point, Min needs to hope that he wins and then catches up and beats the players in that score group above him. But Hans is playing really excellent chess right now. Whoa! Okay, Arjun he's picking up the gauntlet here. He sacrificed his knight in the center. I really wasn't expecting that. I was mentally trying to figure out where the knight should go. But the whole point is that after they recapture in this direction, you see that this rook, it becomes red, it's smelling blood. Both knights are under attack.
I love the look from Niemann. He put on a little hat. He was like first going like, what is going on? And then he put on a little half smile. And it was almost like there was recognition in that half smile. But something's happening here.
There's a big check here that scoops up a rook. It's an exchange, but then there will be a counter fork. So that's what Hans is evaluating right now. And I think he's going to properly assess this because the position now is clearly favorable for black. I mean, it's not winning just yet, but it's favorable. And even though the bar, I see it shifting, I still think that plenty of black's moves are easier because this pawn is loose. There's a check down here that could be really annoying. This move, good one from Arjun. He's like, take my pawn in the center. It's not the most important thing going on. I need the activity. So this rook, it's a knight, hits a pawn. If this pawn goes off the board, just like with rooks, bishops need open diagonals. Soon this bishop can start staring at the black side of the board. So, I mean, both sides are playing this in an enterprising style, but I like that Hans is playing this quite quickly and he's navigating the complications well.
It's a really entertaining game to watch.
Yes.
It's one of those where you feel like this game in a 1.5 against 1.5, no increment type game, it creates so much entertainment.
Oh, absolutely. Because, we can say, oh, it should be equal, it should be this, should be that. There are no should-bes at this stage. And the only thing I see is Hans Niemann bopping his head, dancing. Maybe he's got some music going on in his brain, but he is looking for a way to capitalize on his activity. And there it goes. In comes a knight. The pawn is defended for the moment, but black is ready to kick this knight away to remove the guard of this pawn on f2. So this is critical. This pawn is loose. I'm just going to put them all in blue at the moment. There's a bunch of loose pawns here, and it's white's turn. He could actually capture, but down goes this one, and then this one. Black is suddenly up a pawn. White has the easiest pawn to push, let's call it that, and I've just said earlier, it's about pawn quality, not necessarily quantity in these endgames, but now black does have an extra pawn. There's this pawn that can run at some point. The king is active. A check can come. The black king can enter. And if the white pawn pushes too far, the black will get behind it and scoop it up. So I do think that Hans has great chances. I think that practically speaking, he should win this game because now, oh, there's a check. Oh, what a find by Hans Niemann. If the king slides up, there is a fork along the third rank. So you actually cannot defend this pawn that's loose. There's a fork right here. Can't defend it. And Hans is so alert that he didn't take a pawn that was immediately hanging. And there he goes. I think he's got some Bee Gees on, right? He looks like he's staying alive in this competition. And he just is dancing. And he's going to dance his way to what should be a full point. The hope that Arjun has at this stage is if he can sacrifice his knight for both of these pawns, rook and knight versus rook. That's a theoretical draw, but not when you're down to your remaining few seconds. It's going to be nearly impossible to survive on minimal time. So I think that Arjun is going to suffer defeat at the hands of Hans Niemann.
The Hans of Hans. but still, though, I mean, I love how dancing can illustrate the evolution of a chess game. Because right now, the amount of dancing that Niemann was doing was pretty close to the eval bar.
Whoa, what was that all about? There was one opportunity there, I guess, for Arjun made both players miss something. But right now, after a mutual blip, it seems like Hans is bringing his king in, and yeah, that should be it, because this knight is going to come here, this rook is going to deliver the checkmate. Game over.
And that means first loss that he actually played today for this man, because he forfeited the first round. But let's move over here to the young Faustino against Karatsev.
Oh, we're in a time scramble. So Fausti, he has the white pieces up a pawn, but unfortunately for him, he's down a few seconds. We know how good he's a bullet. He beat Magnus Carlsen in Bullet Brawl. Kravtsov not known for his bullet skills. Red on alert, high alert for both players. In particular, Kravtsov, he's going to be down on clock soon, but Fausti needs to keep up the pace. Checks are good. They force the king back. You might not be pre-moving the king. Here comes the check, here comes the pawn, and that's it. White is objectively winning on the board and now on the clock. The queen appears. Look at Fausti's eyes darting left, right, up a rook. Is he? And Martin Kravtsov eventually loses on time, but he's also lost on the board.
That was it's just so brilliant to see how his mind works and see his vision, see how he's actually managing to even take that extra second of, oh, I got to think about this position. I'll spend a second on this one.
Yeah.
And then he's on the pre-moves for the point one. It's amazing.
And I think he had like a brilliant symbol behind him on the wall. I don't know if you saw that. It looked like 2 exclamation points. So for Fausti, like he's complimenting his own play through and through. He's, you got to back yourself. And he quite literally has what's behind him supporting his chess. And here we have this is a monster matchup between Duda and Lazovic. I guess Duda drew against Magsudlu.
He did. And that means that we have 3 players now in 6.5. It's Duda, Niemann, and Magsudlu.
Okay, so Hans does join the party after his win over Arjun. Lazovic would like to leapfrog Duda. He'd have to beat him in this game. And for Denis Lazovic, he played the Petrov, which is known to be quite a solid opening that actually does suit his style quite well. And Lazovic, this is known, he strikes with this pawn push. By the way, Duda plays the Petrov as well. So when you see these top-level games, it's like competing against an opening you're very familiar with. That can be uncomfortable. Or you can kind of be salivating, just saying, oh, I got this. I know the little tricks here that can get my opponent. And that pawn push, which looked so natural, apparently is not correct. It's hard to fault that decision just now from Denis Lazovic, because if you can, why not push your pawns forward? Those look quite nice. But maybe he's creating some weaknesses in his position that will not be easy to keep defended. Now that this pawn is here, you might need to bring your bishop out. So there's a very clear way, a clear immediate path to defend all those pawns. And it looks like Duda's first move was labeled incorrect by the engine, but I like it. I think it's the very human choice. And right now, great coordination from the white side for Jan Krzysztof Duda, and for Denis Lazovic, he needs to complete his development, which he may do on this turn. He may bring this bishop. It's currently sitting at home. It can develop, maybe do a passive square, but that would allow, or encourage, I should say, this knight jump into the position. I wouldn't love the sight of that. You can also pin this knight, maybe even take that knight over here that will double and isolate white's pawns. But double pawns, open files, and that's exactly what Duda would like to see. So I think that Denis has committed himself to an insecure pawn chain. He's striking forward while he can, but he's creating holes. When you push pawns, you leave squares behind. Pushing this pawn here, one square I'm noting is this one. The white knight at some point can try to jump into it. This pawn in the center, it's defended for now, but if the bishop ever attacks the knight, that pawn can become loose. So I really like the way he started this. The bishop can join the party, attacking the center. I think this position is much, much easier to play from the white side. So I would prefer to have Jan Krzysztof Duda's position. And he is in first in the tournament, and he would love nothing more than to beat Denis Lazovic and continue pressing for first place. Jan Krzysztof Duda, this is really just up his wheelhouse, a perfect type of position for him to play. And for Denis Lazovic, he knows he needs activity. So I actually do appreciate what he's putting down right now. He wants desperately to open up the flank where the white king resides, and he brings his rook up. Next is this pawn. If white stops the push, black reinforces it. Maybe I have to change my mind a little bit. I do think that Denis is playing some really nice chess at this stage, but there's something about the harmony of white's pieces that we can't take for granted. White's pieces all have a purpose right now. The rook and the queen are aligned, putting pressure on black center. The other rook is on the only fully open file. The bishop on the light squares attacking a weak point. The bishop on the dark squares trying to remove the defender of that weak point. The knight doing its great job, a noble steed indeed. It is blockading a backwards pawn. So knights are the best blockading pieces. And here it stops black's pawn in its track and looks over it. And whoa, we see the evaluation completely switch. And I wonder if there's an in-between move that was just played, and now the recapturing, things are opening up. The engines, those human destroyers, they're saying that it is all in Denis Lazovic's favor. And I actually think from a human perspective as well, it becomes very clear that there is a pin in this position that looks quite menacing. This rook can join that party. And I'm going to start using different colors here, but you can see that Duda might feel blue in a moment with all of the pressure in the center of the board. So Denis Lazovic, completely unfazed. He is somebody who can switch from strategic to tactical chess in a flurry. and he might flourish in this game. He is doing really well.
You're strong with the wordplays, Robert. I'm really appreciating it. But just to give you a quick update, because Parham and Hans both have 6.5 points, where Parham is pushing with black pieces against Hans, but more importantly, he's a minute and a half ahead on the clock.
Parham, okay. Parham is doing some serious work. We in the final stretch of this tournament, we'll definitely look into Parham's games because he's a great player, even when he's not in a specific tournament. But in this tournament, he's been only stopped by a half point from Jan Krzysztof Duda. So Parham, that game looks like still quite a lot of life left to it, but yeah, he looks like he's in great shape.
Yeah, and right now we just saw Hans equaling the position on the evaluation bar, but still, it's the time advantage for Parham.
Always have to factor that in. Like in this game right now, we say that Black is doing well on the board. Black also has a little bit more time, but I will say that while the Hans game against Parham, that's going down into the end game stages, this one is much more life left to it. And I do want to remind myself more than everybody, not just because I'm selfish and I only care about me, but I forgot for a second that in this game, Duda is actually up a pawn. So if he is able to stabilize, to keep that knight that is pinned defended, and then move his queen out of that pin, he may find himself very soon in a better position. It's hard a couple moves ago to maybe believe that, but I think Duda believes in his chess. And right now he should believe in his position because he's just trying to trade off pieces. When you are head material, you often do want to trade, and he's no longer pinned. Well, he is no longer pinned on the diagonal, but he is pinned on the file. That knight should not be moving, at least in the next few turns. And also there's a problem down here. So the knight is kind of stuck for now, but it's ultra well defended, and that's a good move from Dennis.
I love these little tidbits of statistics that show up at times. So Duda and Lazovic, their internal record is 11 wins for Duda, 8 draws, and 13 wins for Lazovic. It does surprise me. I know how good Lazovic is, but it still does surprise me that he has a head-to-head win against Duda.
Yeah, because Duda is such a mammoth of the game. So I think that for Lazovic, this is another example of oh so many that show just how strong he is, and that he at first he was considered like the upstart, the teenager, the one who is kind of like trying to throw the world of chess into a bit of chaos with his victories. Now he's here, and he's been here, and he's going to remain here at the top level. Think about what he did in the Speed Chess Championship, beating Hikaru Nakamura, right? That's something that very few people have done, not named Magnus Carlsen or Alireza Firouzja. In fact, he's the third person to do it.
And I was so impressed with him as well, because I remember the kid that showed up for the Champions Chess Tour final in Toronto some years back. When he was a surprise qualifier for that one, he was quite shy. He was a little insecure with the language, with just playing over the board, because we got to remember, I mean, he's a Belarusian. He has been heavily affected with the war and and his chances to play over the board tournaments. And he's playing most of his games on a computer, and then showing up playing over the board to seeing the Speed Chess Championship, the vocal, outgoing, socially strong, and so confident Lazovic we have right now.
Yeah, and he honestly shared more than most chess players do about how playing in person, like there was that psychological edge that he felt he didn't have. But he's a growing individual, right? He's still quite young. With experience may come confidence. And well, I mean, this game, speaking of experience, I think Duda did the experience thing of giving up his queen for a rook and a bishop, because right now, quick material count, Black has a queen, White has rook, knight, and 2 pawns. Whose king is safer? That's up for debate. But this Black king is out in the open, hard to get to it. The White king looks surrounded by pawns, but it is vulnerable in some diagonals. Only one side has a piece that moves diagonally, that's the Black queen. So if this Black queen, I'm just gonna draw some random arrows, can get here, or now where it's trying to go, well, this is dangerous all of a sudden. You see Duda, he's running for the hills, but he walked right into something that should not work, because look at what Lazovic did. He zigs and zags, and he keeps the White king in a mating net, and I think that's game over. There's nothing that White can do, maybe give up a rook or something, that stops this checkmate in 1 threat. And if he pushes his pawn, it's going to stop checkmate in 1, but walks into checkmate in 2. And you can see it on Duda's face. It's registering. He knows that he is not walking out of this alive. Oh, and his time is going down. He was using that. He's in disbelief right now. He is just beside himself. As we see the top, Jose Martinez, Jocelyn wins to go to 7 out of 8. That's somebody who's going to leapfrog Duda if Duda does in fact lose this game, which it looks like he's about to.
And also Max Hudla and Niemann has drawn.
Okay, so they drew, which that's the best news possible for Lazovic. He's going to jump into a tie for first place. And Lazovic, I mean, he is pouncing all over the White king right now. There might even be a time where he gives up his rook for a knight. But actually, Lazovic, he hasn't won the game yet, and now he's down to 16 seconds. So Duda is fighting this brilliantly, I should say, and he could even take a pawn over here. He didn't do that. He was worried about his own king. But at some point, Duda just needs to put his foot on the gas pedal and say, I'm going to objectively be worse this whole time. Let me just try to flag you. And Lazovic down under 10 seconds. He avoided a fork on the back rank. He has to watch out. If a check happens, it lands there, that would be a win all of a sudden for white. He's a draw by repetition. That just happened. The time saved Jan Krzysztof Duda.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. And that's why you want to have a lead on the clock.
But what was it? I mean, yeah, 7 seconds left. I guess there was no chance of actually going into it.
The coordination is what saved him. Like Duda put all his pieces on like annoying squares where they all protected each other. So Duda, we used that word experience before. Just when I was writing him off, I think he was writing himself off. He was able to survive that game, and now he's in that tie for first place. Denis Lazovic still a half point behind.
5 players with 7 points.
Nepo.
Yeah, he's back after losing the first game.
He's roaring back. I mean, he lost game 1. Oftentimes people they withdraw from the tournament after losing the first game. But Nepo says, "No, I'm hungry for overall victory because he wants to qualify for the Esports World Cup."
Yeah. Hospam, is that Jose Martinez?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jocelyn up there as well. But I think the connection to the Esports World Cup is what keeps someone like Nepo in the field. You get points for the top 10 finishes. So for Nepo, who in Title Tuesday's past was that I'm not having a good day, I'm just out of this. He's not just back into it, he's in tie for first.
Well, that is 8 games having been played. That means that we have 3 games left. But before that, we're going to take a quick break.
Here we go.
I promise you guys a quick break. Couldn't have been much quicker, could it, Robert?
You were, quite literal with quick there. I thought also there would be a couple minutes, we'd stretch our legs, but no.
Hey.
The more chess, the better.
I was going to say, this is the, Toto, we're not in Chess.com anymore. we actually do quick breaks.
Well, this is the quickest that I've had, but I'm glad to still be looking at these names on the standings list here because, we have 5 people in a tie for first, but that next group with 6.5 points, they also have a legitimate chance at ending up in first place when all is said and done, and some big names there as well.
I want to add from the candidates that Anish Giri has drawn Hikaru Nakamura with black pieces, so Hikaru with white against Anish. That's a tough win with white pieces. I mean, Anish is such a good foundational player, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these jokes on Anish drawing all his games, but it's just true. These top players are hard to beat.
But the jokes are funny because he reacts.
Yes, and well, he did draw all 14 games, but it wasn't for lack of fighting. But I think for Anish Giri, it's a good result, at least on paper. But the position he had was one where he was, if anyone was slightly better, was him. So, I mean, he's got nothing to complain about.
I want to show you the position here from Prag and Sindarov. I mean, a lot of pieces left on the board. What can we read from this?
It looks like a Title Tuesday game. They both are around 5 minutes remaining. And considering it does look like it could be a Title Tuesday game, I don't even know who that favors. This is a true toss-up to me, and it's been that way for a while. I did think that Black had some good chances, but Sindarov still remains a piece down. So White has an extra knight. Black has 2 pawns, but White's king kind of has found some shelter. And if Black plays imprecisely for a couple turns, selling that extra piece makes its mark. Right now the pieces are very passive from the white side, but if the queens come off, for example, then the activity will be there.
So interesting with these 2 young guys. I mean, we have the Prague, the Ramesh-trained, very, very foundationally strong young star, but then Sindarov, who was saying for a while, and this is just going a year back, well, I kind of prefer freestyle because I don't have to do homework. I mean, he has taken such leaps and bounds in his classical chess lately, and just his preparation and his work towards the game.
Yeah, he's still, they both are kind of kids. Kids don't like to do homework, but what they end up realizing is they can be quite good at their homework. And so for Sindarov and for Prague both, part of what they do so well is they take their opponent out of their homework. And when their opponents are more seasoned players who are used to a certain style, he played against Anish Giri Prague. He played into Anish's chessable course. And Anish didn't follow his own words of advice. Was that because he was secretly hoping that they would only study that? No, I think he knew that Prague was so well prepared. It was a risky variation. So they're taking their opponents in treacherous waters. But not the problem. The brilliance of this game here is that they're both doing it to each other. They're like just swinging at each other. And wow, that looks like a swing and a miss right there. Pragnananda pushes a pawn that can be... he's just giving his opponent a pawn, but he's trying to get breathing room for his pieces. So I understand why he did it, but I also understand why it's a mistake, because it seems like the white king will still be in danger. And in fact, there are going to be more avenues of issues for the white king. And now black gains a third pawn for the sacrifice piece.
But this was just the 33rd move. So there's still quite a bit of moves left before the time kicks in. And they're playing 4 against 3 minutes. You're saying this looks like a Title Tuesday game. It's almost playing with the pace of a Title Tuesday game.
Yeah, that's what happens in Candidates Tuesday. Is like they're going to get down to 4 and 3 minutes. They're going to scramble. They don't have increment until after the new time has been reached, move 40. So yeah, they're making dubious kind of moves just as an attempt to reach the time control and also confuse the opponent, because Sindarov is also down to 3 minutes 45 seconds. And if he makes a mistake here, it flips right back and forth. So I do think, and there it have it. That wasn't the best recapture. I still think black is doing very well. I can't criticize Sindarov's move, but that wasn't apparently the best recapture.
You could obviously watch that yourself on just pulling up the game anywhere right now that's being played in the candidates. But it's nice to be able to talk about chess and everything that's happening at the same time as we're doing Title Tuesday. It's not necessarily just focus on the games that are being played here, but if we move now towards what is truly happening with the Title Tuesday, we have 5 players with 7 points so far, 7 out of 8. Who's your favorite among the 5 now?
I said Duda before, but that game, that was shaky. Yeah. But then again, when you survive shaky games, that actually almost makes you believe in you. Because it's not just about winning the games, it's how you do when your back's against the wall. And so, I mean, it's hard to pick between those. Those are all monster names. I think I'm going to stick with Duda just because I'm trying to be more consistent in my life, you know? Yeah. So I'll stick with Duda. What about you?
I just have this, first of all, I have this feeling about once Mike Sudler starts rolling, he becomes, he's such a form player, it seems. Yeah. And once he's on, he's so extremely on. So I'm gonna actually go for Parham on this one.
Well, Parham might be on, but we've got Jan and Jan Chistov in this one. So we have, but then we have a London system. How could they do this to us? How could you give us this heavyweight clash and not get us into some sharp Sicilian where both players are sacrificing all their pieces, going for checkmate? Instead, Jan Chistov, he's kind of like living up to his current look. He's professorial. He's saying, I'm going to play for small advantages, maybe gain a little space, control some key squares. Where's that rebellious Jan Chistov? Someone get him like a long hair, rock and roll. I want them to start playing some sharp Sicilians. But now that we're here, and I have no other choice but to talk about this position, it's an opening that White is trying to kind of minimize risk. And White has, Jan Nepomniachtchi doesn't mind playing risky chess. He pushed his pawn 2 squares. The reason I reacted that way is whenever you push your pawns forward, they become easier to chisel at. So White can push the pawn in response, immediately putting pressure on what could be considered an overextended pawn. So it looks like Jan Chistov, he just castled. Duda's got his king safe. Nepomniachtchi, he's looking to do the same. But for Mr. Duda, I keep wanting to say Jan, but they're both, one's Jan Chistov, one's Jan. But here, Duda's bishop here stares in both directions, so that piece is looking pretty good. The bishop over here, for black, is sidelined, not really doing all that much. It does take away this starting square from the white queen in case you wanted to regroup, but I feel like, at the moment, both sides have a very solid foundation in their position. I like Jan Nepomniachtchi's clock management. I don't like that choice by him. He gave up his bishop, and now White is going to try to get maximum control over the light squares. Don't be surprised if something like this happens at some point where White just aims for the black queen side. So I think that, so Jan Nepomniachtchi, I don't know if he's just playing for a win because his tie breaks are bad. Like, that might be part of his calculus, is that his tie breaks are bad because he lost the first game, so he's going to try to beat the players who he fears will continue scoring points.
I'm going to say something slightly politically incorrect. You do your country or your country such injustice by pronouncing names so well, Robert. Because usually Americans tend to Americanize every name, and I've been paying attention to this all over. You have such specific, good pronunciations of the different names here, so I'm impressed with that.
I appreciate that, and it's something, whenever I commentate, especially if I get to speak to players beforehand, I ask them to pronounce their name for me. And because I don't want to mispronounce it, I think the least that I can do, these players all speak multiple languages, right? And they have to speak English in interviews. I get to speak my native language at all times, right? You're speaking English and Norwegian is your first language, right?
Yep.
So I'm appreciative of that. I don't take it for granted. And the least I can do, which is very minimal effort in most cases, is trying to properly pronounce. And I mispronounce names. I apologize both for my history of mispronounced names and my future of doing so, but I will always try my best. So I appreciate that.
We see a slight advantage still here for Duda, but I just keep looking at the clock. Just 1 minute seems so significant at this portion. I feel that's what we took out of EWC when we had this the first time. It was just Magnus realizing that this part of the game is where he gets decided, and it's usually about being that minute ahead on the clock.
And Jan Nepomniachtchi was pretty much born with that thought. Like, he does in classical chess as well. He's speedrunning, and he's a gamer. He loves all sorts of games. But, there's got to be a sacrifice. The bar always helps in this case. I might be starting with this move here. It's actually not the way that Jan Nepomniachtchi would have thought the sacrifice. Duda spots it instantly. He doesn't have the bar at his disposal, so he's just spotting tactics where they're available. The point, everyone, is that this pawn right here, that's an overloaded piece. I'm going to put it in yellow, but really it's red. It's got a stop sign there because rook takes pawn is going to devastate Jan Nepomniachtchi. If the pawn captures, well, that's pretty simple. The rook takes, hitting the queen, hitting the knight. If the knight takes, I am still going to pull a Levi Rosman, Gotham chess, and sacrifice the rook! Because once that rook slams down on that square, this poor f7 pawn, often considered the golden pawn in chess, is protecting the king, it's protecting the center, and once that pawn is removed from the equation, down goes the knight that's going to land on where the bishop is, where it's going to capture, and then down goes the black king. So for Jan Nepomniachtchi, we were praising his speed, the way he's able to maintain a lead in the clock, but his blessing is his curse. Sometimes he plays too quickly, and this was a pretty critical moment.
Critical moment, it was also in the candidates day. It was 4 minutes for each player with 7 moves to play. Well, one person managed to maneuver a lot better. Yavakir Sindarov has won the game against Pragnananda.
Wow.
And that is massive for this candidates tournament as well. But look at here.
I mean, I'm looking at this game. I will table my thoughts about Sindarov because I do think that you asked me this question. A lot of people have asked, in general, who is a dark horse? Who can really do this thing? And, in this game, it looks like Jan Duda. He won. Game over. We know what happened. The candidate still has, my math serves me well, 11 rounds to go. And in this tournament, we still have games, Jose Martinez, Hans Niemann, but for Sindarov, he's on the rise, and that means you can't place his level, right? With someone like Fabiano, he's a star. With Hikaru, what he's capable of. The truth is we don't exactly know what Sindarov is capable of. We know that he's capable of successes. He's proven that at the World Cup, in freestyle chess, and all sorts of events. But we don't know how high that ceiling is, and he is crashing through.
I think it's been interesting to hear some of the comments made by Nudirbek Abdusatorov actually about his countryman and his good friend, about how he kept talking about this extreme potential. He just wishes that Yavakir would put in the work, in a sense. Well, the man is putting in the work right now, it seems.
Yeah, he is. He is really putting the work. And I mean, while he leads 2.5 to 3 with Fabiano Caruana, there's still so many games remaining, so much pressure on. And I just, for the first time, glanced up at this position. And what is going, with one single move, the position went from what was apparently winning for Hans Niemann on the board to now totally level, at least objectively speaking. And there must be something to do with the fact that there is this queen and this bishop lined up. There are checks, and this other rook can join the party. But Hans backs it up to g8, that bishop, and the king for Hans it's kind of like stuck in a little bit of a little net there. It's very difficult for Jose to get to it. But if a couple checks land there, the king could be in trouble. But for right now, the material is suddenly, it was even for a turn, and Hans sacrifices a knight, but that's because there's a rook loose over here. So both players are playing in a fascinating style. It's really hard to assess this position, especially trying to incorporate the clock. So black has a rook, white has a knight. That knight is a stallion in the center. That's a really imposing figure. But the black rooks can cause some serious problems for the white king. And apparently that was a terrible move. So why is it bad? I'm not 100% sure, but maybe it's the black queen will then try to deliver a checkmate, and Hans is playing this passively. He's done this now for a couple times, where instead of going full steam ahead, going for the crusher, he's keeping his queen in line with his pawn, which makes sense because you would not want to give up this pawn where your black king is exposed, but black would have been able to try to checkmate the white king first. And now, about even in the clock, the evaluation apparently is level. I don't really believe in that. It looks way too complicated for me to just chalk up to equality. I'm already looking at moves like this. My queen's under attack. I'm going to attack your queen in return. That looks really fascinating at the moment. It could be a mistake, but I think that this actually is a move that allows white to regain some of the lost material. It has been played. Now, Jose down to 30 seconds, whereas Hans is 55 seconds. That's going to play the biggest role at the moment. So unless Jose can find some kind of draw by repetition, I think he's in some huge trouble right now. 50 seconds for Hans Niemann, 25 for Jose. Nice move. Rook up, attacking the queen. The queen slides forward. The white king will be in some danger if this check can land on the board. The black king looking safer. Knight moves here. That looks very odd because the black pawn can now push. And if that pawn pushes, it does. It looks like Jose's going after the queen. So yes, black can get a second queen, but the first one will be lost. Then there'll be checks. That looks too complicated. 30 seconds now for Hans Niemann. Jose Martinez down to 19 seconds. He is actually causing some serious problems for Hans at the moment. He drops it. It's winning for white all of a sudden. There's a check here, and this pawn can be picked up. That wasn't the best move. I'm not sure what would have been better in that stage, but he brings his rook up, but now the pawn really can promote, but pieces are flying off the board very quickly here. Second queen appears, first one is gone, there's a check available. No, instead of recapture, it looks like white objectively is doing okay, but the players, they're going back and forth right now, trying to find a way in. Is Jose Martinez. The knight goes forward, the knight goes back. What's the winning plan? I don't see it at the moment, but maybe there's going to be rook takes knight. That probably is going to be the crusher. The pawn is gone now. Now the knight is also gone. Black up 2 pawns. Trying to trade queens is Hans Niemann. He's up maybe 0.8 seconds. Right now the queen's active. Oh, there's a check. The king has to go. The king has to go again. More checks. Now the queens are off. That should... Oh! Oh! Oh, 0.2 seconds!
But it was 0.7 against 0.2, and just he could not find the legal move here.
That is so up. The point, everyone, was that just a moment ago the queen could have captured. Instead, the king moved out of the way, hoping Hans wouldn't get a move in time. But Hans does just barely manage to push his pawn, the skin of his teeth.
He managed to, but still, it was also a possibility to yeah. Wow, that was crazy.
Yeah, that is as down to the wire as it gets. That was quicker than that breakdown we had.
Gotta add, you had your favorite being Duda. He's playing now against Niemann. I chose Parham Magsudla. He beat Denis Lazovic with black pieces. So 2 for 2 on our picks at least.
And does that mean we've got a 3-way tie at the moment?
Right now, I'm gonna find it for you completely. It's a 3-way tie. It's Duda, Niemann, and Magsudla.
Okay, and then
there's no one with 7.5. So they're ahead of the field with quite a bit.
Okay, so draws will be good in terms of trying to keep others at bay, but a draw would not distance you from your nearest competitor. So we see Andrekin also won against Minle. He's at 7-9. He's one of those players, a point back, trailing Niemann, Duda, and Magsudlu. So something about Jan Chistov today, he's playing in quieter styles. He's got the black pieces in this game. It's a Marozzi bind structure for everyone looking, that these pawns from the white side, they control these pawn breaks all across the board, really, and that's what makes it a bind. Black is going to try to coordinate all of his pieces, maybe bring his rook in, and then try at some point to strike in the center, because if black successfully strikes in the center, then no longer should he be worse. And white is just concentrating all of the energy, all the firepower into the middle, and yeah, this is looking like it's good for Hans right now. He's controlling everything, And Hans, he's focused. He really wants to take down Jan Krzysztof because Hans wants to get back to the Esports World Cup. And Duda, I mean, he's pulling a Hans from earlier. He's dancing a bit. Now Hans as well. Both players, they seem to be talking to themselves, or at least willing themselves to play better chess. And it's Hans with the early lead on the clock. So you'd like to ask this question about how much does the clock matter? I think when you're playing Hans Niemann, he just showed that he's a speed demon.
He sure is.
And Hans here, still controlling the position. Nothing major has happened, at least in the last bunch of turns. I like this move from Hans. Suddenly, Jan Krzysztof's rook is weirdly placed. I mean, what is this rook doing here? There's not harmony in Black's camp. This bishop is very strong on the long diagonal, but it doesn't attack anything. Even once the Black knight moves, it will stare into air. So for the moment, Black is just trying to connect pieces as best as he can, trying to challenge White's setup. Hans can push this pawn forward, just cementing his bishop in place. That looks to be a nice stabilizing move, but Hans is slowing down. So maybe that's part of the maturity of Hans, but it also is a situation where if you're thinking about it from his perspective, he wants to use the clock as a weapon, but right now he's actually the one trailing on time as Black has coordinated most of his pieces. And it looks like, I mean, both players just kind of maneuvering stages. A bishop trade is offered. Doesn't look like that changes the dynamic all that much, but I like what Hans did there as well. He's rerouting his pieces, but I like how Jan Krzysztof's responding, activating the queen. That way he can gain some points of pressure. Instead of just sitting back saying, I've got everything defended, maybe his queen can slink into a square like b4 and put pressure on maybe the lone weakness in White's position. It's protected, but it could become a weakness.
Tough draw for Parham, who's also at the same amount of points with 8 points. He's drawn Erigaisi.
Oh, okay. That's on paper, one of those really big matchups between two super combative players. And yeah, that was a really bad one-move blunder. So,
oh, there you saw it.
Yeah, like dude is like, what did I just do? That is shocking from a player of his caliber. He gave away a pawn. He's now just down a pawn. His remaining structure is ruined. He's got this permanent eyesore that a white rook is gladly staring at. So Black is just going to remain like a turtle, just in the shell, trying to survive as long as possible. And you could see it on Duda's face. He is mad at himself. He just hung a clean pawn to a basic tactic. That is very un-Jan Krzysztof-like. And he's
frustrated. He's really frustrated right now.
He's like, why couldn't I blunder in round 2?
Arjun also has a good position against Parham.
Okay. And
Black pieces, he's about it was about a -1, but now it's equaling up a little bit.
So if Arjun wins, he catches up to Parham, and then everyone will need to hope that whoever is playing Hans takes him down.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for Erigaisi. If he had a tiebreaker, perhaps there would have been an outside chance, but I can't see it.
No. For him, the tiebreaks are doing him no favor. Same with Jan Nepomuchy as well.
But I will add that game has completely turned around right now, and right now there is instead a Parham that is making some queen moves that seem to be unexpected.
Okay. Parham making some serious inroads, also doing well in the clock. So that's bad news for all the Arjun Erigaisi fans out there, but there are many Parham fans. Such a creative, he's like a sensational player. I think it's a good word for him because it looks like the position is calm and then suddenly he brings the storm himself. And just like Jan Nepomuchy, I guess, that can be a bit of his blessing and his curse. But in this Title Tuesday, it seems like it's working really well for him.
I was in South Africa during that freestyle tournament over there, and I've never felt more bad for a player, I think, than I did for Parham, because what works brilliantly for him when momentum gets rolling seems to be an equal troublesome environment once he hits that wall.
Yeah, it seemed like his emotional state matched his score on the chessboard, and they became intertwined in a way that no chess player ever wants. And that's the psychological component. He's obviously a phenomenal player. And he also goes on rating swings. Like, there are periods of time where Parham is in like almost 27-40. And then you see him drop even under 2,700, and you're like, what, Parham? How are you 2,680? And that's with the utmost respect. Like, everyone, when he's at the rating, considers him to be much higher, and then he steals their rating points, and then he gets back up. So, yeah, Parham is great. It looks like Dmitry Andreikin could have trapped Matvey Galchenko's queen and missed it. I think that for Yanchislev Duda right now, he's fighting pretty well. I'll give him credit. He is down nearly a minute, and that is a great move from Hans Niemann. So Hans said, I've learned my endgames. I'm up a pawn. I should trade pieces. And very importantly, he can try to remove the defender of this weakness by playing this pawn up here and try to take this one that remains. And he does do it. I will say that there's one concern I have, and I'm not sure if this is accurate. So everyone who's watching, this is a position I recommend you put on your boards at home. I'm going to try to put all these pieces in red as quickly as possible. If all these pieces come off the board, that might be a draw. This is something now it will not be, but before I was wondering if that was a possibility. I wasn't sure, but I guess it probably wouldn't because there'd always be this inclusion. But if White's pawn had been there, that actually might have been this weird fortress if those pieces came off the board. And I like to think that way because it helped me know what to aim for. And if you're Jan Chistov trying to survive, that's probably the type of thing he wanted to aim for, but you could see it on his face. He was in a bit of a zugzwang, and he's like, this is over. He knows he's lost. But he's going to try. So even if objectively he's lost, is Hans going to... I think Hans is going to try to get this knight, but then that's risky because this pawn, the black king will try at some point to go for it, and then black is a passed pawn of his own. But if the black king goes in, the white king steps up, and then this pawn will march forward. So Hans is keeping everything under control. There aren't that many pieces remaining. And if Hans is not careful, and this knight is able to wrap around from the white knight starting square, that can pose some serious issues. And wow, we have so much changing in these games. And Parham now down on the clock, and he's no longer even better. Are they just going to make a draw?
It does look like they're going into a repetition here.
Ooh, well, Hans Niemann is going to be happy.
That is a draw. Parham drew against Arjun after having been down, having been up, having been all over the place.
Here, there, everywhere, but ultimately a split point between Arjun Erigaisi and Parham Maksutlu. That's great news for Hans Niemann, who looks like he's on his way to winning the game. Now it's a king and pawn game. Now it's simpler to figure out. Okay, this king will still be in the box. So that's why the starting move was the pawn push.
We didn't get Niemann against Parham, did we? I don't think we did.
Don't think so.
So that is the finish then, because Duda is obviously going to fall behind. So if Parham beats Niemann, he will win. If Niemann can secure a draw, he's going to win. And that I love that when the last game, you kind of know all the outcomes.
Oh, that's fantastic for the state of the tournament. I think Duda, obviously... Oh, wait a second. Hans Niemann made a huge mistake. He thought he was pressing forward. I often say it's about pawn quality, not quantity, but now this pawn becomes a queen as well. So Hans Niemann is going to rely on the clock. We saw Jan Chistov Duda escape against Denis Lazaruk from a losing position. Right now, it should be a draw, and this is going to be a check. If it can be another check, he wants to scoop up this pawn, but Jan Chistov Duda has to play some of the best bullet chess of his life because he is now down under 8 seconds. Checks are coming. He's going to have to keep running away, and at some point, he wants a counter check. If he's in check, he wants to check with his queen, but he's going to bring his king and queen close together. It's very smart stuff from Duda. The king is going, he's pre-moving. Now Hans Niemann under 9 seconds. Hans not playing this very quickly. Hans may want to draw soon. Okay, the king's going back and forth. Be careful, both of you. King goes back. There's a check. You're going to block with check. Counter check. The queens come off. Jan Chistov Duda survives that game. Can you believe it?
That is crazy. And that means that we don't get that finish we were talking about where everything is up in the air, because suddenly Duda is very, very, very much back in the game.
How resilient is Jan Chistov Duda? He was seemingly...
look at the guy.
He's laughing at himself, and he's like, I simply cannot believe that I did not lose that game. Sorry for the double negative, but, whatever. As long as he doesn't have a 0 next to his name, he is a happy man.
Very nice from Duda. That means that this is the standing right now, 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. And, suddenly things are back on the table. We have 3 players who can win. We did have a very clear situation a second ago until that move, but right now, let's see who we get. Most likely, we're going to get Niemann against Maksutlu.
Did they already play? Because it looks like Niemann and Andreikin are squaring off.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. None of the 8.5s are playing. That's so good for the 8-pointers. They like all want to, help. They're rooting for each other on to take down the players in first place.
Here we have Parham Magsudlu playing against Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Oh, that's a big matchup. Somehow that's the one on the third board, if you will. But for Jan Nepomniachtchi, I mean, very few people could be happier than him with how the pairings went, because instead of if he wins his game, he knows that he'll trail fewer people at the end. So we see Jan Nepomniachtchi from the black side. Maybe he got to the board late, because I've never really seen him spend this much time in the opening. But I have to say I like this from the white side. The bishop pair, solid play. Parham should be happy. And now they both are staring in the same direction, off into the sunset.
I'm always a little sad when we don't get the camera on Nepo, because I appreciate seeing he has this great collection from World of Warcraft hanging on the walls behind and all that. And it's just, I feel like he brings us into his house to a strong degree whenever he's there. His cat sometimes is walking around. And
yeah, he also is a very demonstrative person, where he'll be mad at himself even if he played a great move. And right now I really don't like the way he's playing this game. I wonder if he's having some connection issues. And the reason I say that is because he doesn't spend this much time early on. And he's now down well over 30 seconds. His opponent, being none other than Parham, has a pair of bishops and has diagonals to work with. So I really don't like this from a strategic point for Jan Nepomniachtchi. It also doesn't look like his style to me. So Parham has a free hand at what should be a stable advantage. So good news for Parham. He's going to have to take this game and hope that the others don't win as well, because he's now rooting for Andreykin and Benjamin Bach. And 3 equally important matchups to end the day. Could not ask for more in this final stage, as Jan Nepomniachtchi brings his knight to the center, trying to trade off pieces. And I think he's really doing the best he can, given the bad start to this game.
But you talked about connection issues. Maybe that is a possibility. I mean, he is playing in the Grenke freestyle. He may be, I don't know where he is right now.
On an airplane?
He may be on an airplane. He may be at a hotel room. We all know about hotel Wi-Fi, how it can create mayhem. And I think that's just something we have to take with this format, because sometimes you are left with bad internet.
It's true. And that's why, you always have to be somewhere with a stable connection, somewhere you trust, get that Ethernet cord ready. But yeah, if you're playing on an airplane, as Magnus did earlier, you probably will not have the best connection. And right now, I think what Jan is doing has been pretty smart. He's traded off pieces. That is eliminating some of the issues that have previously been on the board. But we see a very strong bishop attacking a queen, attacking a knight behind it. We see a semi-open file that can put pressure on a pawn. I think small plus here, but a lasting plus for Parham Magsudlu. As long as he doesn't make this move and blunder a bishop, that would be very, very tragic, because there's a pin pawn in the center. So Parham's doing well. I think he's given himself very good chances to increase his advantage and then play for a win. But again, he's reliant on some of the other results.
What conclusions can we draw from the Niemann against Andreykin in the beginning here? It does seem like Niemann suddenly got a huge advantage.
So it looks like Hans is up material. He's up a rook for a knight. I don't know what Dmitry did, but something went really wrong for him in this game, where, oh my goodness, he made a one-move blunder. So Hans has been the recipient of one-move blunders 2 games in a row. This one was just blundering a skewer. The queen and rook were in the same diagonal. The bishop attacked the queen moved, the rook was lost. So for Hans, he better put this one away. He will not forgive himself if he doesn't win this game against yet another super grandmaster who he's up material against. Wow. You don't expect Duda and then Andreykin to make such, for their incredibly high level, silly mistakes.
And I would think that Niemann has also the tiebreaker, because he was ahead of Magsudlu prior to this last round. But as we know, a lot of things can happen with the different results, so you're never safe in this format.
No, it's like in the Olympiad. For anyone who likes that team event, at the last round, all the top competitors are playing, and their captains are doing math, where they're like, okay, so if Finland's board 3 wins, how does that change our tie breaks? And then, okay, well, we're looking at that matchup there between Kyrgyzstan and Namibia. It's like all this sort of, you're looking at all these countries that don't seem like they play a part, but there's the tiebreak system will determine if there are multiple people on the same points. And here, it looks like the points obviously favor Magsudlu, 8.5 points entering the round to 8 for Nepo, but on the board, it's an extra exchange and 1 pawn, but Nepo gave up his rook for a bishop so that he could land this nice knight fork. That's a check to both the king and now this rook. The rook is gone. The knight leaves the board as well. So white is left a pawn to the good. Now this pawn is loose, and now Parham takes that. Oh, a miscalculation perhaps by Nepo, thinking this pawn was going down, but then it's him who will yell timber because check hits the king, hits the rook, and we know that Parham, he is tenacious, and I think he wants to trade queens now. So if you're Parham, something like this looks really strong. I think a lot of these rook endgames have great winning chances if they're not outright winning. Instead, he just defends his pawn. So he's saying, I'll keep my extra material. I'll keep my 35 seconds lead on the clock. And Parham's doing the work. Ooh, Nepo. You can always trust Jan to find some ambitious, feisty move. And it was a good move because otherwise he's just sitting doing nothing. But Parham says there's 1 queen in front of what's going to be a 2nd queen. His plan is very simple. Check, push, and then push. That's really all he wants. And it may be that straightforward at this point.
But it's still nice, though. I mean, in this day and age, with so much computer prep, so much analysis and everything, I mean, chess is still dominated in these days, at least by this old guard that truly values creativity.
Yeah. And I kind of consider Parham like a chess boxer on the board, if that makes sense. Like, he is somebody always willing to get into a fight. He is scared of absolutely no one. Doesn't matter if your name is Magnus Carlsen or whoever else. He is willing to take you on. Right now, he is about to get a 2nd queen, but he does have this concern here. There's a check, and that would be a yo-yo string draw by repetition. Just very important for those of you watching to learn this kind of mechanism that the white king will not be able to escape. So what Parham wants to do then is maybe make a move like queen here to stop the check from continuing. The problem with that is you allow 1 check and then this pawn to push, and suddenly you're worried about the safety of your king. Not that you're going to checkmate it, but that there will be a draw available to black. So Parham, because he conserves his time wisely, now he has time to calculate. He still may go wrong. It's a very tricky position right now. In fact, I'm not even 100% sure what I would do here because this move looks very natural to me. Another way to stop all those checks could be to bring the queen and blockade. That way it looks a bit passive. But there's also this move, which I think is a bit tricky, but I don't know what's going on here. The point, everyone, of king here is that if black continues that same mechanism, white throws in a check. So I'm moving my king out of immediate check. It's kind of like prophylaxis, as they call it, just trying to escape black's immediate threat. I don't know if that works, though.
But how much time does Parham have?
Under a minute. And he slinks his queen out. That was one of the moves I suggested. He can now block a check with his queen. And this apparently is the winning decision, but that wasn't. He needed to bring his queen back. He had a check that he could have given. He could have gone here. But now he has allowed the black queen to start gobbling up pawns. If his queen does at some point come back and block, he needs to make sure he's not losing connection with his passed pawn because he might lose this game if he tries too hard to win. So you see the determination. Parham wants it. He wants it, and he's given all his pawns. A great example about it's the quality of the pawn. White has the best pawn on the board. It wants to become a queen, but the white king has nowhere to hide. It looks like the black king just has too many. Queen, excuse me, has too many checks. He's botched it.
Wow.
And he doesn't even want to be on camera anymore. That's how upset he is. Oh, he's back. His king is trying to dart into the black position, but the problem is it hides behind a pawn, but there still will be checks. Checks galore. He's not getting out of them. This should be a draw.
And Parham is desperately trying to figure out something.
As desperate as he may be, he's not going to find it here. The problem is that the white queen, and there the draw is official. Parham Magsulu seemed to have in the bag, but one misstep was all it took. Jan Nepomuk, she survives. Parham not getting first, I don't think.
But you warned us here, Robert. You said this is extremely tense, extremely complicated. Even though it looks so simple with endgames, it's hard to do the calculations.
Speaking of, Hans Niemann was completely winning. He has a rook and an extra pawn compared to a bishop, and yet it's saying that it's a very complicated battle because, whoa, the black king is trying to step backwards. The bishop is covering the length of diagonal and covering both directions. I think for Andrejkin, his king is getting back in time. There it is. The king steps back. We're getting and Bach and Duda draw, so the Parm draw is not as bad in the end, and you see Hans yelling. He's so upset.
Wow, look at his face.
Oh my goodness. I know if that were me, there would be plenty of
I've never
expletives, so it's good that he's covering his
choked.
mouth.
That was, I was so relaxed. I wasn't even looking at the time. I literally forgot.
I literally forgot about the time, is what he's saying. He was so relaxed, trying to just lull his way into this win, and suddenly time catched up to him.
Oh, well, time catches up to us all, doesn't it?
Look at this final score. Duda wins ahead of Niemann, ahead of Maisudla. He lost the win on that. He lost the tournament.
Oh my goodness. And for Duda, the fact that he survived against Hans when he was just dropped a pawn, and I mean, he lost to. Wait, how did he do all this? Like, how is he the magician, right? Like, he should be losing. He doesn't lose. Like, the guy seems invincible to some extent. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable that Duda did not lose all those games he was in trouble in.
Yeah, and he manages to pull off an improbable win. But I will at least say this. You had Duda, I had Maisudla. At least we had them all at 9 points at the end.
Yeah, and Hans is like, why did nobody choose me? I'll prove you all the doubters wrong. But, I mean, those three players, they did so exceptionally well. But I think for Duda, it means the resilience. For Hans, it's the, unfortunately for him, he was getting those advantages, which was really hard to do. But his opponents were handing him opportunities, and he, unfortunately for him, couldn't convert.
But it's not that often that we see the winning score being 9. I mean, it is a low score. It's as low as I think it's almost statistically possible for it to be, with these players winning so many of the game against the poorer players.
Yeah, I think, because the candidates and all these events are happening, that there are fewer entrants, which means that the high score, if no one's going on a tear, can be lower. But yeah, we see Duda, Niemann, Maksud, the only 3 players in 9 out of 11. That's shocking. And then you see a contingent there from 4th to 10th, all with 8.5. So yeah, the players, I mean, they have a lot to be happy about. Especially if you're Jan Krzysztof Duda, I think he should go play the lottery or something, because luck is completely on his side. And if you're Hans Niemann, I mean, this tournament was yours. Like, it felt like it was his to win. And Par Maksud maybe share some of that sentiment, because his game against Jan Nepomniachtchi at the end there, he spoiled the winning position.
So that leads us to this score. Duda, Niemann, Magsudlu. Then also we have a bunch of players on 8.5 points. Minle, Dragalov, Andreikin, Ohanian, Nepo, Arjun, and Bok, all taking points towards this CCT standings.
Yeah, that's why players like Nepo, who lost the first game, Arjun, who wasn't even here for the first round, they were smart to play and spend. Even 1 point can be critical towards the final standings.
So here we see Duda moving up to second on the split 3 standings. We have Niemann, who then moves into 3rd place. Still, Nihal on top here with 17. We have, it's pointing towards a quite exciting and tight finish for this split 3, even though we're only 5 game weeks in. But we're noticing now in the 3rd split, not all the players are playing all the tournaments anymore, especially with candidates going on.
And actually, not only the people who are participating in the candidates, sometimes it can be revealing who might be a second, helping the players and the candidates. Because if you see someone who may play every Title Tuesday, but mysteriously they're not playing during the candidates, it could be like a secret second for the players who are working while the players are competing. They're working behind the scenes trying to get ready for the next game.
Have you caught any theories just based on that?
No, I actually only just thought of it. I wish I had thought of it earlier, but there's also Grenke starting, so some players are traveling. So yeah, I don't want to put too much speculation into the void, but yeah, it seems like that could be a theory.
Speaking of Grenke though, I mean, we have such a top heavy field in that freestyle tournament. It's crazy, but that leaves a lot of the top players unavailable for candidate help, though. At least active candidate help.
That's true. No, it is really true. And actually, there were some names that I saw. I won't name them, but some names I was okay. I thought they might be working with somebody, but clearly they're not if they're playing in Grenke. So that would eliminate, in all likelihood, eliminate people from being seconds. But then you start looking down the list, and either people are absent because they have other things to do, or they might be busy helping the candidate. Let's not forget, there's 8 candidates, and there are 8 players in the women's candidates.
Yeah.
Many people could be around there.
And I have heard these tidings about people who are in the area and not necessarily stating their intent. So it's exciting times. I mean, with all the controversy on location prior to this candidate tournament, I guess people don't go to Cyprus voluntarily right now just for the just to hang around.
Yeah, I think it's been a lot going on there, and I mean, I went to Cyprus last year. It's a lovely country. My wife has family from there, so it's really great. And it's a difficult decision. I really feel for Humpy because, Timur Rajabov made a decision, obviously under different circumstances during COVID. And, people make decisions they think is best for them. And it's, on one hand, I do really feel for her because she is such a good shot. She's such an exceptional player. But then the tournament, it's hard because moving things in 5 days, I don't know what you're supposed to do. It's just really difficult.
Right now we have a guest on this broadcast, and it is the winner, Jan Krzysztof Dura. This is Sverre Sundbo, and I also have Robert Hest here. Congratulations, Jan Krzysztof.
Thank you.
We were saying there were a lot of games there where we felt that the decision there could have been a lot of different decisions in a lot of the games, but you've managed to pull the close games your way so often here. How would you describe the day?
Yeah, I think I was just lucky, to be honest. I got outplayed in several games, including next to the last round with Hans. I mean, I basically blundered pawn in one move and was just very lucky, not to lose it at once. And I mean, also in the end, I wasn't, very efficient with white pieces versus Bok. But again, Hans didn't deliver. And I mean, in general, it was probably the first time actually when I have 9 out of 11, and it's enough for the first place. It happens very rarely, and so in that regard, I mean, in every regard, I was just lucky today. But overall, I guess it also wasn't too bad because in the last, a couple of last editions of Third Tuesday, I was outside top 10, so yeah, it's good to win.
Still, though,
I mean, it's always good to win in general.
I'm just guessing when you're sitting there with 8.5 tied with 2 other players and you draw your last game, you're not expecting the 9 points to be enough at that point, I guess. But it seemed like what I was talking about with your games, that seems to have been the general feel for a lot of games today. We had Hans, who got lulled into a safe feeling with his time at his last game now. He thought he had more time on the clock than what he did, so he ended up spoiling the position. But do you feel the stress towards the end of the tournament here, where it's game 11 is a little different to maneuver than game 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's always very tricky for me actually, especially if I play with white pieces. I think historically I have blown at least 5 Third Tuesdays. I mean, which I could have won, just given not to lose in the last round with white. But but I was managing to lose to pretty much everyone, not only Magnus or Hikaru, but just, I remember some game versus Ivic, for instance. And I mean, of course, if you are, leading the tournament, of course, you are going to have strong opponent. But somehow, I have always struggled with white pieces, I think. Because with black, it's easy, to say to yourself that, okay, you are going to suffer most likely, and you don't expect too much. But here with white, I mean, it's, you may want to draw. I mean, it wasn't the case this time, but somehow, you're always tempted, to look for some forcing lines, some forced draws, and but somehow it didn't work, usually. This time it was tricky, because on the one hand you want to win, but also you don't feel like, losing like an idiot with white pieces by over pushing. So, it's difficult to, you just have to play normally, I guess, but it's easier said than done. So, yeah, it wasn't a very impressive game, but good enough, fortunately.
And Jan Krzysztof, you said, you didn't want to lose, and it seemed like that was almost impossible for you at some points, where, against Denis Lazovic, it seemed like you were, he got his queen in, all hope looked lost. How did you find your way to survive that game? Because it seemed like you, even by your expressions, were giving up some hope.
Yeah, I actually completely missed this idea that, he can almost checkmate me on A1, and also played king c3 instantly, which was very stupid, of course, because after the zigzag queen c5, queen a5, I was just lost. And I don't know, I just try not to lose, at once. for several seconds I didn't even see the solution. Then I spotted, okay, before is the only move. I mean, which doesn't lose, instantly. But I didn't have any hopes, to be honest. I mean, it was just that was just like the first lucky game of today, I think.
Well, Jan-Krzysztof, I'm seeing that you're now going to probably be traveling to Germany for Grenke Freestyle. I hope this was a good way of getting a good feeling prior to that tournament, because it seems to be an amazingly stacked tournament, especially considering candidates is going on at the same time. So best of luck in Grenke on what is going to be another amazing tournament.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it will be very interesting actually, because I have never played 960 OTB, and also I haven't played. I mean, I've played some rapids, but like no longer time control. So yeah, I'm very interesting, and I mean it's very interesting to me what is going to happen. I don't quite know what to expect, from myself. So I mean, I will just enjoy, and chill as if I played, I don't know, checkers, Go, or some other game, which I can't really play. So yeah, we'll see.
960 Freestyle, Fisher Random. A dear child has many names, as we say. But thank you so much for taking the time here, Jan-Krzysztof, and congratulations on winning this game week 5.
Thank you.
And I also want to say to you, Robert, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. It's been so great having you in the studio, and also having a bit of a different broadcast. A little bit of candidates, a little bit of Title Tuesday, a little bit of talking about Grenke that is coming up. Chess is fun, right?
Chess is more than fun. It's a great game. It's got so many different disciplines, 960, freestyle. It's got so many time controls, candidates, blitz, rapid. So I think everyone is having an amazing time to be a fan at the moment. And I really love Jan-Krzysztof just being like, yeah, I was just lucky. I love it when top players, they sum up all of their successes into luck. It's not the hard work that he puts in, but in all seriousness, I really appreciate being here. It was a fantastic event. It always flies. Like the games happen so quickly, 11 rounds in the books, and that's that. But I kind of wish it continued.
I look forward to the next time I get to do something with you, Robert, and thank you so much for taking the time. For now, we will see you next Tuesday.
It looks like Farouz is almost getting it done on the board. Should still be a draw. He's losing now suddenly.
He's throwing a thorn into the white side, holding on here for dear life. The nerves are kicking in.
He's playing with Ghost, afraid to commit.
Did he lose on time?
The clock is his worst enemy right now.
Oh, look at this. He's trapped his own king in the corner. The black rook is hit as well.
Whoa, is this a blunder?
Checkmate is coming.
Here we go.